Chapter 2166. Jiamaji comforted him. Don't worry, Prince. I think the princess only treats him as a nephew. Moreover, there is another woman with him. I think nothing will happen. What is the background of that veiled woman? Prince Ming, please help me find out. Prince Zhongzhan could not help but swallow his saliva as the elegant and beautiful figure of the woman appeared in his mind. Jiamaji frowned. Prince, we are here for the marriage. Don't lose sight of the bigger picture because of a small gain. If the Xixia people hear about this, it will be disadvantageous to you. Hearing his harsh tone, Zhongzhan had no choice but to reluctantly snort and say, Well, I'll go look for this beautiful chick after I marry the princess of Xixia. Anyway, it seems that she knows that man surnamed Jia. The monk can run, but the temple can't. At this time, in the carriage, Song Qingshu's nose was a little itchy. He wanted to sneeze but couldn't. What's wrong, Master Jia? Are you not feeling well? Princess Jincheng asked with concern. I'm fine. Maybe someone is bad-mouthing me behind my back. Song Qingshu smiled. He finally had the opportunity to observe the woman in front of him closely. She had snow-white skin, a jade-like nose and soft oval face, which matched her temperament very well. She was indeed a dignified and gentle woman. However, Song Qingshu's eyes fell on her slender and beautiful eyebrows and moist red lips. Especially when compared with the tan tubo made beside her, her skin looked even fairer. The more he looked at her, the more he felt that every part of her was full of temptation. Song Qingshu could not help but secretly complain, Have I been a vegetarian for too long? Why is my mind full of nonsense? Princess Jincheng's smooth and white face showed a faint blush when she noticed his gaze. She turned her face to the other side unnaturally. Miss Gu, your Wushuang city is thousands of miles away from the Great Song. How did you know each other? Princess Jincheng used this to cover up her embarrassment. Gu Zixian's lips curled up as if she had thought of something wonderful. It's like this. We were attacked by the Mongolians. Fortunately, we met. She told the story of being attacked and being rescued by the Great Song's diplomatic mission. Song Qingshu was shocked at first. When he heard that she did not reveal her identity, he let out a long sigh of relief. The Mongolians are really aggressive. Princess Jincheng listened with great interest and kept asking for details. Gu Zixian also patiently answered her questions. Looking at Princess Jincheng's excited expression, Song Qingshu recalled the first time he saw her. He felt that her eyes revealed traces of defeat. Now she was in high spirits. It was as if she was a caged canary, beautiful but without freedom. She was full of curiosity about the outside world. Listening to these stories along the way, the carriage had unknowingly arrived outside the Southern Song residence. Knowing that the Tufan princess had arrived, everyone in the embassy hurriedly came out to welcome her and happened to see Song Qingshu getting out of her carriage. Xue Baochai jumped in fright. Baoyu, why did you run to Wang Fei's carriage? Quickly get down. The identity of the Tufan princess was special. She was also the only princess of the Great Song dynasty who was related by marriage. Now that the Jia family was in a precarious situation, the royal family did not touch them because they were concerned about the overall situation. If someone took the opportunity to make a complaint, Jia Baoyu would be in trouble. Nothing, I called him up. Princess Jincheng got down the carriage with the help of her maid. Her gentle smile was like a spring breeze. Greetings, Wang Fei. A group of people hurriedly bowed to her. The yellow-shirted girl looked at her with an excited expression. No need to be so courteous. Everyone can just call me princess. It sounds more intimate. Seeing an old friend from her hometown, Princess Jincheng naturally did not want to address her as a foreigner. Learning institution in the past, the Song dynasty's princess was called Empress Concubine. In reality, Emperor Huizong of Song changed the inherited title of princess to Empress Concubine. Not long after, the shame of Jinkong happened. At that time, People were somewhat superstitious and felt that the title Empress Concubine was somewhat inauspicious. Thus, it was naturally changed back to Princess. "Are you Ingluo?" Princess Jincheng asked softly as she supported the yellow-shirted girl. Previously in the carriage, she had already heard from Song Qingshu. Yes. Seeing her relatives, the yellow-shirted girl could not help but feel gratified. Princess Jincheng was not her biological sister. She was originally the daughter of a prince. Later, because of marriage, she was conferred the title of princess. In terms of seniority, Ingluo was her aunt. However, the age difference between them was not too big. After all, their bloodlines were connected. One had experienced many dangers and tribulations at a young age, while the other had married far away at a young age. When they saw each other, they immediately resonated with each other and looked at each other with tears in their eyes. The two of them quickly walked into the inner room. They both had a stomach full of things to say. Dual cultivator princess. Xue Pan and the others naturally could not follow. Just as they were feeling bored, they suddenly noticed Gu Zixian and their worries turned to joy. Young Master Xue. The dual cultivator princess nodded slightly. During this time, she had investigated a lot of information about her benefactor. It was not difficult to find out that Jia Baoyu and Xue Pan were best friends. She did not know the relationship between her benefactor and Xue Pan. She was worried that their relationship was not shallow and did not want to offend her benefactor's friend. Hearing the unprecedented gentleness in her tone, Xue Pan almost went crazy with joy. She smiled at me, she actually smiled at me. Is she interested in me? In the end, she was attracted by my brilliance and martial prowess? But our identities are a problem. I wonder if my father will agree to marry her. But she is still a princess. It is not a disgrace to our Xue family. At that moment, countless thoughts flashed through his mind. He had even thought of the name of their first child. Seeing Xue Pan's perverted look, Song Qingshu was speechless. Xue Pan was the son of a top-notch family. Did he have to be like this? Gu Zixian also felt uncomfortable under Xue Pan's gaze. She subconsciously hid behind Song Qingshu. Xue Pan wiped the saliva from the corner of his mouth and asked enthusiastically, "Princess, what business do you have here?" Gu Zixian pointed at Song Qingshu and said, "I came to find him." Xue Pan's smile instantly froze on his face. He couldn't help but pull Song Qingshu to the side and said fiercely, "Does my sister know you're so coquettish?" Song Qingshu looked to the side guiltily. Fortunately, Xue Baochai had followed the yellow-clothed woman into the house. Otherwise, it would be even harder to explain. "Ahem, it's not what you think. She took the initiative to find you. What else could it be?" Xue Pan felt his heart bleeding. Song Qingshu didn't know how to explain, so he threw the ball to Gu Zixian. "What business do you have with me?" Gu Zixian wasn't stupid. She could tell from the two's reactions that she had brought trouble to her benefactor. However, she reacted quickly and immediately said, "I heard that young Master Jiao was in charge of investigating the Goryeo murder case. I happened to have some clues and wanted to see if I could help him." Hearing this, Xue Pan's worry turned to joy. What kind of clues? Chapter 2167. Is that so? Xue Pan couldn't hide his disappointment, but he knew that Jia Baoyu had recently taken on a lot of work and couldn't find a reason to refute. Song Qingshu was also overjoyed. His investigation had reached an impasse recently and he didn't expect to find a new breakthrough from Gu Zixian. He couldn't help asking curiously, "What is it?" Gu Zixian looked left and right with an awkward expression. "There are too many people here." "Then let's go to my room." Song Qingshu nodded and pulled her hand to run to his room. Xue Pan's eyes almost popped out of his head. Damn, why are our hands together? He wanted to chase after them, but the two of them disappeared in the blink of an eye. He didn't even have time to say what he wanted to say. "I must let my little sister see the true face of this scum." After returning to his room, Song Qingshu hurriedly asked, Princess, what clues did you find? What responded to him was a pair of fragrant and soft lips. It was unknown when Gu Zixian had taken off her veil, revealing her indescribably beautiful face. Song Qingshu was startled, but he still instinctively hugged her soft and slender body, feeling the exaggerated elasticity of youth. After a long time, their lips parted and Gu Zixian's snow-white cheeks flushed red. Her beautiful eyes were moist and her long eyelashes lightly trembled. Benefactor, I've been telling myself to stay calm these past few days and not be a moth flying into a flame. But in the dead of night, your figure kept appearing in my mind, and my longing for you grew stronger and stronger. In the end, I couldn't bear it anymore and decided to go out to find you. I didn't expect to run into that fat Prince of Tubo on the way, and I also didn't expect to run into you. All of this makes me feel like everything is destined. Song Qingshu was greatly moved when he heard this. He was clearly aware in his heart that Gu Zixian's feelings were so intense mainly because she'd always been living in despair for the future. She'd always hoped to escape the cage of an arranged marriage, but unfortunately, the responsibilities she carried prevented her from taking that step. Only when he appeared did her stagnant life finally have color. An obedient girl from a young age would be much more daring than ordinary people when she became rebellious. Thinking of this, Song Qingshu felt even more pity in his heart. He gently stroked her soft hair and took the initiative to kiss her. Sensing his actions, Gu Zixian was wild with joy. That night, she had taken the initiative to look for him, but the other party's reaction wasn't as enthusiastic as she had imagined, making her a bit worried. Now that the other party had finally taken the initiative, she could finally put down the apprehension in her heart, and her whole body was filled with a sweet feeling. Can you take off your mask? This is a bit strange. Gu Zixian's body went limp, but she still tried her best to stop him. All right. Song Qingshu's reply was concise and to the point. Right now, he didn't have the time to say anything else. Oh, the two young bodies were passionately entangled together. One was deeply in love, while the other was hot-blooded. Both of them wished they could rub the other into their bodies. Soon, their clothes fluttered down like butterflies, revealing the beautiful scenery of youth. Ah, Gu Zi's immortal flower branch trembled, and she couldn't help but cry out. Dong dong, dong 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 dong. At this moment there was an urgent knock on the door. The two people in the room couldn't help but pause and subconsciously look in the direction of the door. Princess, are you all right? Shui Pan's anxious voice sounded. Gu Zixian was both embarrassed and angry. She lowered her voice and whispered in Song Qingshu's ear, "This friend of yours is really..." Song Qingshu gently brushed her sweat-dampened hair. "Who told you to be so beautiful? Which man wouldn't be moved by you?" Hearing him praise her, Gu Zixian's heart was filled with sweetness, but it was quickly replaced by shame. "But I don't like him. If he wasn't your friend, I wouldn't be so nice to him." Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. Shui Pan is actually a wonderful person. There's no need to care about him. However, Shui Pan clearly didn't think so. Seeing that there was no response, the knocking on the door became even more urgent. Princess, princess? Bao Yu, are you bullying the princess? Song Qingshu's expression was strange. He stared at the delicate beauty below him, thinking that this was a kind of bullying. Suppressing her embarrassment, Gu Zixian said to the outside, "Thank you for your concern, young Master Shui. I'm fine." That's good, that's good. Shui Pan laughed. "I'll wait for you outside. If Bao Yu dares to bully you, just call out and I'll help you teach him a lesson." "There's really no need. Young Master Shui, you can go do your own things." Gu Zixian's eyes widened. They were in the room. How could he do it outside? It's fine, it's fine. I'm quite free anyways, so it's fine to wait," Shui Pan hurriedly replied. Gu Zixian was on the verge of tears. She looked at her lover. "Why is he like this? Just ignore him." Song Qingshu smiled and continued to bury his head. Gu Zixian gritted her teeth and grabbed the bedding tightly. Her entire body was extremely nervous. After an unknown amount of time, Xue Baochai came back from Princess Jincheng's place and found her brother in a daze. She couldn't help but ask curiously, Why aren't you going in? The dual cultivator princess and Baoyu are discussing something inside. It's not convenient for me to go in, Xue Pan answered. With Xue Baochai's intelligence, she immediately reacted. It's probably because the princess doesn't want to see you. Big brother, she clearly has no interest in you. Don't waste your energy on her. Who said so? She's always incomparably cold to others. She only smiles when she's with me. Xue Pan blinked as the image of her sweet smile appeared in his mind. For a moment, he couldn't control himself. Xue Baochai curled her lips. She smiles even more when she's with Baoyu. Xue Pan's smile gradually froze, as if he had been shot by an arrow. Why aren't they coming out after chatting for so long? Xue Baochai revealed a suspicious expression. She wasn't like her brother who would obediently wait because of a goddess's words. She couldn't help but feel a little sour when she thought of Jia Baoyu and a beautiful girl in the same room. Just as she was about to knock on the door, it was already opened from the inside. Jia Baoyu and the dual cultivator princess walked out. Xue Baochai frowned slightly. She felt that the two of them looked strange, but she couldn't tell where to blame them. The only thing worth noticing was that the dual cultivator princess's face wasn't as pale as usual. There seemed to be a hint of pink. Song Qingshu coughed and rushed to speak first. The princess brought me crucial information that will be very helpful in solving the case. I'll send her back now. Xue Baochai wanted to ask something, but seeing how mysterious the two were, she guessed that they weren't willing to reveal anything. She also didn't care about Goryo's matters, so she didn't pursue the matter. Chapter 2168. Gu Zixian immediately blushed and hurriedly explained, I accidentally twisted my ankle just now. I'm fine. I'll bring some medicine to the princess later. Xue Pan glared at Song Qingshu. How did you take care of Baoyu? The princess was injured because of you. Song Qingshu opened his mouth, wanting to persuade him to give up. However, he didn't say anything in the end. There was no way to explain something like this. Gu Zixian's face was as red as an apple. She pursed her lips tightly and didn't say anything. Song Qingshu knew that she was embarrassed and hurriedly said a few words to the Xue siblings before leaving with her. Gu Zixian had originally said that she would go back alone, but Song Qingshu was worried about her safety on the road alone. She had previously been harassed by Prince Zongzan on the streets because of her beauty and figure. If she encountered something similar again, she might not be so lucky. Furthermore, the two of them had just had that kind of relationship. She was currently at her most sensitive and vulnerable. How could he let her go back alone? Gu Zixian was extremely happy to see him take the initiative to send her off. Her body was soft and tender the entire way in the carriage. She obediently lay in her lover's arms and spoke of her love. Song Qingshu hugged her soft and alluring body and listened to the girl's passionate words. He almost couldn't control himself. In order to avoid being discovered by the Xue siblings, he ended it too hastily. He didn't have the time to enjoy himself to his heart's content. Unfortunately, they were on the street. Although the other party most likely wouldn't reject him, it was hard to guarantee that the girl wouldn't think of him as a plaything. Song Qingshu didn't want to hurt the delicate heart of a young girl, so he suppressed the desire in his heart. However, just hugging her delicate body and smelling the faint fragrance on her body was already a very pleasant thing. Unknowingly, they returned to the Zungar embassy. They bumped into the young city lord of Peerless City, Duguming, who was returning from the streets. Seeing his fiancée with another young man, his face darkened. What have you been doing? Gu Zixian was originally immersed in the sweetness and tenderness of her lover, but when she suddenly saw him, she couldn't help but feel nauseous. What does what I do have to do with you? Why do you care? Song Qingshu witnessed with his own eyes how she changed from an obedient little woman to a frosty appearance in just a second. He couldn't help but secretly click his tongue. At the same time, thinking that she was only so gentle to him, he couldn't help but feel proud and complacent. You are my fiancé, why can't I care? Du Guming was also annoyed. Gu Zixian revealed a look of disgust. What fiancé, we haven't even officially set up an engagement. Du Guming snorted coldly. It doesn't matter if you're willing or not, the successor of the House of Dual Cultivators has to marry into our peerless city. Sooner or later, you'll be mine. With that, he stormed off angrily. Gu Zixian bit her lips and thought back to what he had said. Thinking about her destined future, she couldn't help but feel sad, and her eyes immediately turned red. Seeing that she was on the verge of tears, Song Qingshu could guess what she was thinking. He comforted her gently, "Don't worry. With me around, a mere peerless city can't dictate your fate." Gu Zixian shook her head. "This is different. I have the responsibility of the House of Dual Cultivators on my shoulders. Some things are destined to be done by me." Song Qingshu frowned slightly. Just as he was about to say something, the wife of the House of Dual Cultivators rushed out after hearing the news. She had red lips, perky breasts, plump buttocks, and a graceful figure that most girls couldn't reach. "What just happened?" "Nothing much. It's just that annoying Du Guming came to pester me again." Gu Zixian curled her lips. The wife of the House of Dual Cultivators frowned. "Our House of Dual Cultivators and Peerless City have been friends for generations, don't be too disrespectful." She still wanted to say something, but she suddenly noticed the faint blush on her daughter's face and the inadvertent flirtatious expression on her face. She couldn't help but change her expression. She hurriedly pulled her daughter into the house and said, "Come with me." After walking a few steps, she turned around and looked at Song Qingshu. She hesitated for a moment. "Young master, come in as well." Song Qingshu guessed that she must have noticed something. However, the current him naturally wasn't as unconfident as the youths in his previous life. He calmly followed her in. After entering the inner room, the wife of the House of Dual Cultivators chased all the servants out, leaving only the three of them. "Have you lost your virginity?" The wife of the House of Dual Cultivators stared at her daughter with a burning gaze. Gu Zixian's face turned slightly red. She glanced at her lover. "Mother, why are you asking me such an embarrassing question in front of others? Don't change the subject. Do you have it or not?" The lady's expression was a little solemn. Gu Zixian bit her lips tightly, her hands unconsciously rubbing a corner of her clothes. After a long time, she finally responded with a soft voice. The madam wanted to scold her, but the moment she opened her mouth, it turned into a long sigh. "What a sin, what a sin. Didn't I tell you before that even if you don't like Du Guming, you can always find your true love after marriage? But now that you've lost your virginity, how can you hide it? I'm afraid the friendship between Peerless City and the Dual Cultivators' residents for 100 years will turn into enemies." Song Qingshu, who was at the side, was confused as he listened. How could a mother educate her daughter like this? It seemed that the people of the western region were indeed different from the people of the Central Plains in terms of moral values. Gu Zixian's body trembled. She clearly knew the consequences of this matter, but she didn't know how to deal with it. Song Qingshu coughed lightly. "Actually, you don't have to worry too much about Peerless City's reaction. The madam stopped him from continuing. "Young master, you've misunderstood. We aren't afraid of Peerless City. Even if young master doesn't interfere, the Dual Cultivators' residence's strength alone is enough to contend with Peerless City. The main reason we are doing this is because the ancestors of the Dual Cultivators' residence owe Peerless City a huge favor. We need to repay this favor to comfort the spirits of our ancestors in heaven." Hearing the madam mention the ancestors, Song Qingshu really didn't know how to persuade her. After a long time, the madam let out a long sigh. "Fine, we'll take it one step at a time. Mother, Gu Zixian's eyes reddened, and her voice was a little choked up. The madam gently caressed her daughter's head. Suddenly, she thought of something, and her expression changed. Oh yes, just now, when you used the dual cultivator's mental cultivation method. Gu Zixian blinked her eyes and was about to cry. I was too nervous just now and forgot. The madam immediately became anxious. That is the most important step in cultivating our mental cultivation method. If you don't do it, it will cause you to be unable to progress for the rest of your life. The madam paced back and forth, clearly very anxious. What a waste, what a waste! Cultivating the dual cultivator's mental cultivation method for more than 10 years has the effect of bringing the dead back to life. It is extremely beneficial to both sides. No, while there is still time, you should cultivate again and see how much of the effect can be restored. Before her daughter left, she was still a virgin, but when she came back, she changed. She naturally knew that this had just happened. Chapter 2169. Gu Zixian's snow-white face was now as red as a persimmon. Mother, what are you saying? Even though Song Qingshu was used to seeing things, he still felt that the madam's suggestion was a bit outrageous. The madam's oval face was also slightly red. It was clear that she also felt that saying this was a bit shameful. I know it's not appropriate to say these things, but it's really important. The young master doesn't know, but you should know how important it is. Gu Zixian had cultivated the dual cultivation technique since she was young, so she was naturally clear about it. She was extremely vexed over why she had forgotten. She stealthily glanced at Song Qingshu, her expression incredibly bashful. Her previous initiative seemed to have used up all of her courage, and now she couldn't even say any words of invitation. As a considerate man, how could Song Qingshu make things difficult for a woman? He nodded. The princess is as beautiful as a goddess, so this is something I can't ask for more. Gu Zixian turned her head and the corners of her lips rose slightly. There was a mixture of shyness and joy at her lover's praise. The madam's heart jumped when she heard their words of love. She quickly said, don't go back to your room. There are too many people on the road, and it's not good to be seen. Just stay in my room. I'll go out and help you keep people away. She then ran out as if she was escaping. Song Qingshu looked around the room. All the decorations were quiet and dignified. However, there was a faint rose fragrance in the room that seemed to reveal the passion in the owner's heart. What are you looking at? Gu Zixian's curious voice came into his ear. Song Qingshu's heart jumped and he quickly said, No, nothing. Looking at her fair and rosy skin that was as tender and beautiful as a fresh flower, he was already a little restless on the way here. How could he hold himself back now? He grabbed her legs and carried her horizontally. Gu Zixian let out a soft moan and buried her head in his chest. Why is this bed so soft? Song Qingshu was suddenly very curious. This bed was much softer than normal. Gu Zixian grunted and replied in a small voice, My mother's skin is very sensitive and is very afraid of hard things, so the bed is much softer than normal. This physique is quite special. Song Qingshu smelled the special fragrance on the bed and couldn't help but let his imagination run wild. Big brother Song, Gu Zixian's soft snort pulled him back to reality. Song Qingshu's face turned red. He wondered what kind of nonsense he was thinking about. Brother Song, pay attention to the circulation of my true qi. Don't resist. Gu Zixian endured her shyness and said. Song Qingshu nodded. He was actually an expert in this field, so he naturally knew the principles behind it. Gu Zixian shyly smiled. She opened her snow-white arms and tightly hugged her lover. After a while, the wife came back from patrolling the area. She was about to ask her daughter when she suddenly heard the sound coming from inside. She couldn't help but blush. This girl really doesn't know how to be quiet. What if someone else hears? She originally wanted to leave, but she was worried that someone would come over and hear and leak the secret. She could only suppress her heartbeat and guard the door not far away. At first, she was thinking about whether her daughter remembered the circulation method at the critical moment. On the other hand, she was worried about whether her current remedy would be effective. But later, as she heard the intermittent sounds of the situation inside the room, her heart was already in chaos. She had lived alone for more than 10 years and had always lived a pure life. But after all, she was at the peak of a woman. In the dead of night, she would also feel cold and lonely. However, those thoughts would often be driven out of her mind by reason. First, literature. But now that the sound coming from the room was so moving, the wife couldn't help but think of the strange attraction she felt when she approached Song Qingshu. Once this thought appeared, she could no longer control her thoughts. Why would I think of these things? The wife touched her face with her hand and felt that it was burning. After some time, when Song Qingshu came out of the room, he happened to see the wife sitting in a pavilion not far away. "Hello, madam." Song Qingshu felt a little strange. He had just slept with someone's daughter. How should he greet her? The wife didn't stand up. Her legs under the stone table were slightly trembling. "Why are you alone? Where's Xian?" Song Qingshu was a little embarrassed. She's a little tired. She's resting inside." "Oh." The wife finally reacted. No one would be able to hold on for so long. The two of them stared at each other, and the atmosphere suddenly became a little awkward. "Just now, how was it?" The wife finally returned to the question she was most concerned about. Song Qingshu was stunned. "Why are you talking to me about this?" He thought it was a custom in the Western region, so he could only answer, "Your daughter has a refined appearance and a delicate body. Well, I naturally feel that she's perfect." The wife blinked. At first, she was still confused. Later, she finally understood what he was talking about. Her face instantly turned red. "Who asked you about that?" "I'm asking about the effect of the dual cultivation method." "Ah." Song Qingshu was instantly embarrassed, and hurriedly replied, "Your manner's mental cultivation method is indeed unique, and it has produced very good results. Even my own cultivation has become much purer. As for the princess, her cultivation should have improved even more." The dual cultivation method was indeed of the same origin as the Joy Zen method. When used together, it had an effect of twice the result with half the effort. The feeling of the spirit and the body becoming one was even more enjoyable. From his point of view, if he could recover from the serious injury he had just suffered, the dual cultivation method was indeed extraordinary. "I'll take my leave first. I'll come back to see you later." Song Qingshu felt too embarrassed to stay here, so he hurriedly left after saying this. Looking at his fleeing figure, the wife couldn't help but laugh. She got up to ask her daughter, but as soon as she got up, her legs gave way and she almost fell down. For a moment, her face became even redder. After Song Qingshu came out from the mansion of dual cultivators, as the saying goes, when a person encounters a happy event, his spirit is refreshed. He seemed to be walking a lot more briskly. Recalling the scene from earlier, Gu Zixian's boundless gentleness, and the corners of her mouth couldn't help but curl into a satisfied smile. Suddenly, his expression froze, but he didn't stop. Instead, he deliberately walked to a nearby alley. When he walked to a shadowy place, a bright long knife appeared out of thin air and slashed at his neck. Song Qingshu reached out and caught the long saber with 2 fingers. The masked man in the dark was shocked. He hurriedly threw something that looked like a smoke bomb and disappeared in an instant. Chapter 2170. Given Song Qingshu's cultivation, no one would be able to disappear so quickly in front of him. Unless he hadn't disappeared at all. He stretched out his hand and grabbed toward a mottled wall at the side. The marks of time could be seen on the wall, and there was even a lot of moss. It was as if this small alley had been here for several decades. At this moment, the wall suddenly moved. It was as if a section of the wall had grown legs out of thin air and was running away with all its might. However, How could he outrun the hand behind him? With an agonizing cry, the hand pressed down on his shoulder. In that instant, he lost all his strength. Looking at the masked man who was paralyzed on the ground, Song Qingshu was no stranger to this kind of attire. He had seen it many times in movies back then. Ninja. Song Qingshu didn't understand why a Japanese ninja would come to assassinate him. He had thought that it would be someone like Duguming who was so jealous that he would send someone. You know martial arts and it's at such a high level? The ninja's tone was filled with astonishment. I never said that I don't know martial arts. Song Qingshu spread out his hands. You're blaming me now? Thankfully, he had shaken off the Central Plains red dot earlier. Otherwise, it wouldn't be convenient for him to expose himself now. However, this guy really wasn't good at protecting people. If the real Jia Baoyu was here, it would be dangerous. How did you see through my earth evasion technique? The ninja's face was filled with disbelief. You guys call this thing earth evasion? Song Qingshu fiddled with the camouflage cloth on the ninja's body. He couldn't tell the material of the cloth, but objectively speaking, the disguise was indeed very similar. If it wasn't for the fact that his cultivation was no longer limited to his eyes and he could rely on his aura to identify people, he might really have been fooled. Baka, our Japanese ninja's 5 elements evasion technique, is the best in the world. You're not allowed to humiliate us, the ninja said angrily. Song Qingshu directly gave him a slap. Baka your head. I'm a Taya butterfly. However, the ninja didn't get angry. Instead, he was elated. You're also a Japanese? Song Qingshu ignored him and directly asked, Why are you here to assassinate me? Who sent you? At this moment, the ninja finally understood. How could the other party be a Japanese? Song Qingshu saw the determination on his face and knew that he probably wouldn't say anything. He didn't want to waste time and directly used the soul transfer technique to ask the same question. The ninja's face was full of struggle and confusion. He stuttered, Princess, Goryo murder case. Key clue, Song Qingshu frowned and was about to ask again when he noticed that black blood was flowing out of the other's mouth. He must have bitten through the poison in his teeth and coincidentally encountered Song Qingshu's soul transfer art. That was why he was struggling at death's door. I was too careless. Song Qingshu was a little annoyed. These were the necessary skills of a ninja. He should have been prepared in advance. However, he was still able to glean enough information from his word. The reason why the ninja came to assassinate him was because the dual cultivator princess had told him that she had a crucial clue. Could it be that the murder case in Goryo was related to the Japanese? Song Qingshu suddenly realized that the direction of his investigation was limited. He had only investigated who had the most motive in Goryo. But now that he thought about it, didn't the Japanese also have a huge motive? They made use of the death of an important figure of the Wuchen group to provoke suspicion among the various forces in Goryo and cause internal strife. This way, it would be easier for the Japanese to invade in the future. However, the so-called crucial evidence was just an excuse that Gu Zixien came to find him. The Japanese had hidden so well, but in the end they were exposed by a joke. Yao Yao Literature Network, speaking of which, life is really unpredictable. Thinking of all this, Song Qingshu didn't know whether to laugh or cry. He had investigated for half a day and found nothing, but in the end, he actually found a clue like this. It seemed that he was still too far away from being Direngya, Baoqin Tian, Conan, etc. However, he might be able to open up a new line of investigation. A lucky detective? Nothing could beat good luck. Song Qingshu's expression suddenly changed. Wait, since they came to assassinate me, how could they let go of Gu Zixien who provided the clue? Thinking of this, he hurriedly rushed back. Madame Dual Cultivator was having a private conversation with her daughter. He didn't know what they were talking about, but the two of them were blushing. Madame Dual Cultivator was very surprised by his return. Gu Zixien was surprised and couldn't help but feel happy. The two of them had just had the most intimate relationship, and she couldn't wait to be together with him all the time. After Song Qinshu explained the purpose of his visit, Madame Dual Cultivator replied, "There are no assassins here. I think we have strengthened the patrols during this period, so it's not easy for them to make a move." Song Qinshu nodded. After being attacked by the Heavenly Sect, Galdan, Peerless City, and Dual Cultivator Mansion didn't dare to take it lightly. In addition, after the incident in Goryeo, the Western Xia country also sent more people to protect the envoys of various countries. Therefore, it was very difficult for the Japanese ninjas to sneak in. Most of them would choose to make a move when they were outside. Thinking of this, he hurriedly told Gu Zixin again and again not to sneak out to look for him. It was too dangerous. "But I miss you." Gu Zixin's voice had a hint of coquettishness. Madame Dual Cultivator Mansion was very surprised. Her daughter had been cold and arrogant since she was a child. When had she ever shown such a feminine side? "I will come to look for you," Song Qinshu comforted her. Although Gu Zixin's martial arts weren't weak, the Japanese ninjas were very good at unorthodox martial arts. They were especially proficient in the art of assassination. He didn't want her to take risks. Moreover, the sweet and gentle nature of the girl was also very attractive to him. Madame Dual Cultivator Mansion had a strange expression on her face. She thought, "My daughter is going to get married in the future, and you are going too far by stealing my daughter in front of me." However, when she thought of his unfathomable martial arts and the fact that he had helped Dual Cultivator Mansion, she didn't say anything in the end. After coming out of the Dual Cultivator Mansion, Song Qinshu wanted to go to the Japanese side to investigate. However, he hesitated for a moment and decided to look for the Fu sisters first. His identity was a little sensitive, and it would be more convenient for them to come forward to resolve this matter. After arriving at the Korean embassy, Song Qinshu hesitated for a moment and decided to look for Fu Junyu first. This lass had a good relationship with him, unlike her elder sister who was like an iceberg all day long. When she saw him, it was as if she was looking at a thief. "What are you here for?" Fu Junyi just happened to turn a corner and walked out. When she saw him, she couldn't help but frown. "Can't I take a look around?" Song Qinshu's lips twitched. He wondered if this woman had been abandoned by a tall, rich, and handsome man in the past. Otherwise, why would she have such a huge grudge? "If you are here to look for my younger sister, I advise you to stop your wishful thinking. What kind of character is my younger sister? How would she fall for a profligate son like you?" Fu Junyi said calmly. Song Qinshu was so angry that he laughed. "Miss, where do you get your confidence from? What? Don't tell me you are not here to look for my younger sister." Fu Junyi held her sword and stared at him with a sneer. Seeing her cold and arrogant look, Song Qinshu was a little angry. He rolled his eyes and said with a smile, "Compared to your younger sister, I like you more as an elder sister. This time, I specially came to look for you." Fu Junyi didn't expect this answer. Although she had many admirers in this life, they didn't dare to be the slightest bit rude because of her identity and martial arts. She had never heard such a bold and direct confession from a man. In an instant, her face turned red. Chapter 2171. Song Qinshu had to admit that Fu Junyi's swordsmanship had reached a very high level. The strength, timing, and angle of the sword were all top-notch. Seeing that the sword was about to stab his throat, Song Qinshu did not dodge but just looked at her quietly. "Why don't you dodge?" Sure enough, the sword stopped 3 inches away from his throat. Fu Junyi tilted her head and looked at him. She couldn't help but admire his courage. Song Qinshu looked at her with a smile. "How could you bear to kill me?" Fu Junyi was so angry that she wanted to stab a big hole in him with her sword, but her reason stopped her from doing so. After all, he was the son of a prominent family in the Song dynasty. Recently, Korea had been plagued by disasters, so she didn't want to cause any more trouble. Song Qingshu used his hand to gently push her sword away. Miss, your hand is shaking badly. It's better to put it away. Fu Junyi sneered. Why, are you still afraid? I'm not afraid of being stabbed to death by you, but I'm afraid that you will be sad after I die. If that happens, I will really be heartbroken, Song Qingshu said affectionately. You be ****. Fu Junyi finally couldn't hold back anymore. She pulled out her sword again and wanted to slash him. At this time, she didn't care about her usual moves. She only slashed at him in the simplest and most direct way, as if this was the only way to vent the hatred in her heart. You're trying to kill your husband, Song Qingshu screamed and ran away in a flurry. Fu Junyi's face became more and more gloomy. She didn't say a word and chased after him with her sword. However, for some reason, when she thought she was going to hit him several times, he either slipped or jumped to the side and avoided her attack. She didn't suspect anything and just thought that he was lucky. It was really difficult to see any traces of martial arts from his movements. Soon, a strange scene appeared in the Goryeo embassy. The usually cold Miss Fu actually lost her composure and chased after a young man. Everyone couldn't help but guess what happened. Could it be that Miss Fu was abandoned by that Jia guy? How is that possible? Miss Fu is like an immortal. How could she fall for that playboy? But that pretty boy has a good body. That's true. Since ancient times, it's always been whores who love money and girls who love beauty. Fu Junyi's face darkened as she listened to the discussion around her. She understood that she had lost her composure, but she couldn't suppress the anger in her heart even if she wanted to stop. I should be able to cut him down within 2 moves. This thought had appeared in Fu Junyi's mind countless times, but it always turned out contrary to her wishes, causing her to feel even more agitated. Big sister, what are you guys doing? Fu Junyi finally heard the commotion and rushed out. Seeing her sister chasing after Jia Baoyu, she hurriedly jumped out and stood between the two of them. Don't stop me, I must chop this bastard to death today. Fu Junyi gritted his teeth as he looked at the man. Of course, Fu Junyi wouldn't give way. She blocked her sister's attack and glared at Song Qingshu. How on earth did you provoke my sister? Song Qingshu looked innocent. It's nothing. She didn't let me come to you, but I insisted, so she came to cut me down. Fu Junyi didn't expect there to be such a shameless person in the world. Is that what you said just now? Song Qingshu looked at her blankly. What else did I say? You said. Fu Junyi paused as soon as she opened her mouth. She couldn't say the words that the other party had said to tease her. 678 Song Qingshu took the opportunity to laugh. Junyu, your sister actually has a sharp tongue but a soft heart. Although she wants to kill me on the surface, she has always been merciful. Otherwise, I wouldn't be alive to see you. Fu Junyi couldn't help but laugh. Of course, my sister is so skilled in martial arts. If she really wanted to kill you, you wouldn't be able to escape. Fu Junyi's face suddenly turned red, and she didn't know how to explain for a moment. Fu Junyi took the opportunity to glare at the crowd not far away. Stop looking or I'll beat you up. Those people knew this little devil's way of doing things. She even dared to beat up the son of the Chui family, let alone them. Therefore, they were all so scared that they scattered. Song Qingshu noticed that Fu Junyi had discreetly bypassed his sister and approached them. For his own safety, he hurriedly said, Ladies, I'm here to inform you that there's some progress in the murder case. Really? Who's the murderer? Fu Junyi hurriedly asked. Fu Junyi, who was beside her, silently inserted the long sword that she had drawn out a few feet back into the sheath. We can't be sure yet, but it's very likely that it's someone from Dongying. Song Qingshu roughly told them about how Gu Zixian came to look for him and how she encountered an assassination attempt. You're quite popular with women. Even the famous and arrogant princess of duo cultivation took the initiative to look for you. Although Fu Junyi was smiling, there was a dangerous glint in her eyes. When I was on my way to Western Xia, I happened to run into them being chased by people from the Heaven's Mandate sect. Our envoy group helped them, so they must be very grateful. Song Qingshu evaded the main point and dwelled on the trivial. Fu Junyi was concerned about another question. Dong-ing warriors are proficient in the art of assassination. How did you escape? She had some doubts about why she couldn't hit him earlier. Song Qingshu replied calmly, because my family is worried about my safety, so they have arranged for experts to protect me in secret. The Central Plains was a little red, so he took the blame. Protect you in secret? Fu Junyi wasn't surprised that a big family would protect their successor like this. She looked around and asked, then why didn't he come out when I was chasing you? Because he knew that you couldn't bear to kill me. Song Qingshu smiled. You. Fu Junyi tightened her grip on the long sword in her hand. Fu Junyi couldn't help but look at Song Qingshu and said, You brat, you're constantly testing the boundaries of death. Ahem, let's go to the Dong-ing guesthouse to confirm it. Song Qingshu decided to guide their attention back to the main topic. Yes, we do need to confirm it. Fu Junyi nodded. What Jia Baoyu said earlier could only prove that the Dong-ing guesthouse was suspicious, but it couldn't confirm that the murderer was really from there. Soon, the two sisters brought Song Qingshu to the vicinity of the Japanese guesthouse. Looking at the high walls, Song Qingshu thought to himself, should I let my older sister carry me in, or should I let my younger sister carry me in? I didn't expect that hiding my martial arts would have such benefit. Wait outside, we'll go in and investigate. Who knew that Fu Junyi's words would directly kill all his hope? Song Qingshu. That, I'm not afraid of danger. Song Qingshu hurriedly said. Dong-ing ninjas are all mysterious and unpredictable. We don't have the energy to protect your safety. Fu Junyi snorted coldly. Fu Junyi also echoed, You're too weak. We don't want to bring a burden like you along. Chapter 2172. The Fu sisters didn't waste any more words. With a tap of their toes, the two of them leaped into the Japanese guesthouse, leaving Song Qingshu alone to stare at the high courtyard wall. Looking at the backs of the two girls as they drifted away, Song Qingshu couldn't help but think, these two sisters are too good at burning bridges after crossing the river. Sister, isn't it bad for us to leave him behind like this? Fu Junyi looked back and asked in embarrassment. Fu Junyi shook her head. It's very dangerous here. Bringing him here would be harming him instead. I didn't expect that although you're fierce to him, you're actually quite concerned about him. Fu Junyi teased. Fu Junyi's face turned slightly red. Don't talk nonsense. I care about pigs and dogs, but I won't care about that playboy. Fu Junyi looked back again and was shocked to find that Jia Baoyu was no longer there. She couldn't help but say, Did he sneak in? How is that possible? Fu Junyi curled her lips in disdain. That kid is glib and afraid of death. Why would he take such a risk? Thinking of Jia Baoyu's usual behavior, Fu Junyi couldn't help but chuckle. She felt that her sister's description was very apartment. Shush. The Japanese ninjas are quite capable. Don't get discovered. Fu Junyi hurriedly reminded. Fu Junyi thought of the battle with Yagujuman and didn't dare to be careless. The two sisters quietly walked around the guesthouse for a while, avoiding the guards along the way. Suddenly, they saw a person dressed as a ninja rushing toward a house. The two girls looked at each other and hurriedly followed. When the ninja opened the door, Hidekatsu's face flashed through the gap. The two sisters were overjoyed. They knew that they had come to the right place. They quietly went to the back of the house and opened a small hole in the window to observe. There was a crisp bang. It should be the sound of a teacup falling to the ground. Then, Hidekatsu roared angrily, Baka? The mission failed? He spoke in Japanese. Because Korea and Japan were close, and Japan had attacked Korea from time to time in recent years, the Fu sisters had studied the enemy's language to a certain extent. It's fine if the princess is heavily guarded, but Jia Baoyu is alone on the street. Why can't we kill him? Yagujubi asked in a deep voice. I don't know. When we found Tanaka-san, he was already dead. It looked like he was restrained and committed suicide by poison, the ninja explained. Seeing that he couldn't get anything out of him, Yagyujubi waved his hand and motioned for him to leave. Then, he said to Yuchai Shioshing, "Young master, if I had known this would happen, I would have done it myself." Hayashi Shioshing shook his head. "You killed Goryo's people earlier, so it's best that you don't move around now, lest you expose yourself." When the Fu sisters heard this, their eyes burned with rage. So the Japanese were the culprits. "Young master, this is really a brilliant move. You used this to provoke internal strife in Korea and make the Korean martial officials and the royal family suspect each other. When our Japanese army arrives, they can only surrender." Yagyujubi's eyes were filled with madness. "Actually, with our Japanese elite soldiers, it doesn't need to be so complicated to deal with Goryo. However, foster father is cautious, so we just do as he says." Hayashi Shioshing laughed proudly a few times before frowning. "However, how did that princess get the evidence? It's really troublesome." Yagyujubi shook his head and said, "I don't think it's possible. When I killed Chuishur, I hid in the house with the wood escape technique. Those people didn't notice me when they came in, and they still can't solve the mystery of the secret room. How would the princess of the western regions know?" When Fu Junyu heard him talking about killing her Korean compatriots proudly, she couldn't hold back anymore. With the new and old hatred from his sneak attack added together, she shouted and directly rushed in with her sword. "Die, you scoundrel!" Fu Junyi didn't hold her sister back. She was angry and anxious. Her sister was too irrational to rush out like this, but now was not the time to blame. She was worried that her sister would be hurt, so she hurriedly rushed up to help. "Young master, be careful." The two people in the house were obviously caught off guard by the attack. Fortunately, Yagyujubi reacted quickly and instantly pulled out his long sword to meet the two beauties. It was a pity that he had lost the initiative, and the Fu sisters' bright swordsmanship was ahead of him step by step. When the two of them joined forces, their power was multiplied. Soon, Yagyujubi had several sword wounds on his body. Fortunately, his martial arts was strong, and he barely avoided the vital parts. Otherwise, he might have been lying on the ground. Even so, the wounds on his body kept bleeding, and his strength was gradually draining. He couldn't hold on for long. "Baka, Miyamoto, Kojiro, how long are you two going to watch the show?" Yagyujubi saw a gap and roared. Fu Junyi and Fu Junyu's expressions changed slightly. They stopped attacking him and looked at the door solemnly. Two Japanese samurai with completely different auras walked in. One of them had messy long hair and seemed to have experienced the vicissitudes of life. The other person's hair was neat and tidy, and he seemed like a clean young master. "Didn't your Yagyu family boast that you have the true inheritance of the sword Saint Shinshin Ryu? Why do you need help?" The melancholy and decadent uncle leaned against the door with his sword in his arms. He was not in a hurry to attack. Yagyujubi's face was livid. "Baka, Miyamoto Musashi, I know you are not convinced that my grandmaster has been conferred the title of Sword Saint. If you have the ability, go directly to Shangchuan City and challenge him." The decadent uncle looked out of the window. "Wizumi Shinsuna, sooner or later, I will challenge him." At this time, the noble swordsman next to him said coldly, "You are no match for the Sword Saint." The decadent uncle suddenly became angry. "How do you know that you can't beat him if you haven't fought him?" The noble young master ignored him and walked straight to the Fu sisters. "Let me experience Master Fu's bright swordsmanship." Fu Junyi looked warily at the strange long sword in his hand, and suddenly thought of a person. Purple clothes, shoulder-length hair, and a 5-foot-long sword. "Are you Sasaki Kojiro, who shocked Japan with the unique skill of Return of the Swallow?" Hearing the words Return of the Swallow, the decadent uncle, who had been cynical, focused his eyes. He wanted to take this opportunity to watch his opponent's unique skill. Unexpectedly, the noble young master replied, "Yes, I am Kojiro, but I don't need to use Return of the Swallow to deal with you." The decadent uncle almost choked. He snorted and closed his eyes again. Fu Junyi looked at him. "Then this should be Miyamoto Musashi, who is as famous as Kojiro? Little girl, you know a lot. Don't worry, I won't join forces with Kojiro. Just attack him," the decadent uncle said with a smile. Sasaki Kojiro snorted coldly. The long sword in his hand had already been unsheathed. He turned into a purple shadow and attacked the Fu sisters. He knew what Miyamoto Musashi was up to, so he decided to end the battle quickly so that he wouldn't expose too many of his trump cards in front of him. So fast. Fu Junyi was shocked. She pushed her sister away and raised her sword to meet him. Chapter 2173. Ah! Fu Junyi screamed. A button on her ribs had been cut open, and blood soon dyed her clothes red. Seeing that her sister was in danger, Fu Junyi couldn't care less and directly drew her sword to fight. The two sisters' martial arts came from the same source, so there was no hindrance when they cooperated. They finally stabilized the situation. Sasaki Kojiro's movements were strange and his swordsmanship was fierce, but the two sisters could still defend themselves, so he couldn't do anything to them. "Miyamoto, hurry up and go help." Hidekatsu frowned. Yagyujubi was seriously injured, so he didn't dare to send him up again. If he accidentally died here, it would be over. As for the other ninjas, the difference in martial arts was too great, so they would only add to the chaos. Hearing his words, Miyamoto Musashi didn't move. This goes against the samurai spirit. Moreover, I think Kojiro won't be willing to let me help to deal with two women. He wanted to take this opportunity to see what the famous Yenken was all about. There was a saying in Japan that no one had ever seen Kojiro's Yenken. Those who had seen it were all dead. Sasaki Kojiro naturally knew what Miyamoto Musashi was thinking. The two had always been in a competitive relationship, and there would be a life-and-death battle sooner or later. They were both afraid of each other's martial arts, so he didn't want to expose his ultimate move in front of each other. However, facing the two women, he also felt a little embarrassed. So he attacked faster and faster, and his moves became more and more ruthless. The Fu sisters were just able to deal with it. Thinking that there were so many Japanese masters around, the two women inevitably panicked. The most important thing about bright swordsmanship was the state of mind. Once the mind was in a mess, the swordsmanship would be greatly reduced. Under this situation, the two women were suddenly in a precarious situation. It didn't take long for the two women to suffer many sword wounds. "Junyu, I'll hold these people back later. Take the opportunity to leave." Fu Junyu knew that if they continued to delay, both of them would die here. Thinking of the licentious and cruel Japanese, even she couldn't help but turn pale. "No, I'll cover you." Fu Junyu bit her lips tightly. She didn't say anything stupid like leaving together. In the current situation, there was a chance of survival if one of them was sacrificed to cover the other. If both of them left, neither of them would be able to leave. Your martial arts aren't enough to hold these people back. When the time comes, no one will be able to leave. Furthermore, you're still young. I've lived a few years longer than you, and I've lived enough. Hurry up and leave, don't waste time. Fu Junyi was already planning to use a suicidal method to see if she could create an opportunity for her sister. "You want to leave? None of you can leave today." Looking at the sisters' abnormally flexible and tough bodies as they swung their swords, a trace of excitement flashed in Yuchai Xiuxing's eyes. Right at this moment, a wave of clamorous noise suddenly sounded out from outside, and Feather Chai Xiuxing frowned. "What's going on outside?" Soon, a ninja came in and said something. Fu Junyi vaguely heard something about a fire outside. Baka! Why did it catch on fire? Feather Chai Xiuxing was infuriated. Currently, there were so many countries' residences in the city, yet nothing had happened to them. If it was only their territories that had been burned to the ground, then all of them would truly lose too much face. After that, he said to Miyamoto Musashi, who was watching the show, "Go and see if there's anything going on." He wouldn't help if he stayed here. Instead, he would make Sasaki Kojiro's hands and feet tied. It was better to send him away. Miyamoto Musashi was helpless. He casually saluted and followed the genin to check the fire. Jubiai Yagyu was also helped out for treatment. Seeing that both of them had left, Sasaki Kojiro's eyes narrowed. He no longer had any scruples and instantly made his ultimate move. Yen return. Fu Junyi and Fu Junyu instantly turned pale because they found that at this moment there were 3 Sasaki Kojiro waving their swords at them from the front, back, and side at the same time. Generally speaking, as long as the speed was fast enough, a similar afterimage could be formed, but afterimages were afterimages after all. They often only played the role of confusing the eyes, and had no real lethality. But the Yen return in front of them was different. The 3 Sasaki Kojiro were absolutely real. Each of them carried a sharp sword chi, which brought a terrible pressure to people. No matter who was hit, there was absolutely no chance of survival. "Don't kill them!" Hidekitsu hurriedly stopped them. What a joke. If such 2 beautiful girls were cut in half by Sasaki Kojiro's sword, it would be too much of a waste of God's gift. Sasaki Kojiro frowned, but in the end, he didn't kill them. The Fu sisters screamed one after another. Both of them were hit by the back of the sword. Although they were not killed, this heavy blow also made their internal breath chaotic, and they couldn't raise their combat power at all. Seeing that they had no power to resist, Hidekitsu walked over with a smile. "Although the 2 girls are a little fierce, they look quite good. Take them back to Dongying. One is for my adoptive father, and the other is for my own use." "Hey, hey, hey!" Hearing his words, the 2 sisters were so angry that they wanted to take their swords to end their lives. But now their chi was chaotic, so they couldn't do it. Seeing that the 2 of them had no power to resist, Hidekitsu felt like there was a ball of fire in his lower abdomen. He couldn't help but reach out to touch the 2 girls' faces. Looking at their fair and tender skin, it must be very comfortable to touch. Just as he was about to touch the other's face, the wall beside him was suddenly smashed open, and a burning firewood cart quickly crashed in. Hidekitsu cried out in surprise and hurriedly retreated. Sasaki Kojiro took out his sword and cut all the scattered stones. Just as he was about to rush over, the burning firewood cart was suddenly overturned, and countless fireballs filled the sky. As the saying goes, water and fire are merciless. Even with Sasaki Kojiro's martial arts, he had no choice but to avoid the sharp edge. He kept using his sword to deflect the fireballs in front of him, and at the same time, he had to protect Hidekitsu. When the dust settled, he found that the 2 girls were no longer in the room. The cooked duck had flown away. Thinking about how the 2 enchanting beauties had escaped, Hidekitsu's heart was bleeding. "Quickly chase after them." Sasaki Kojiro nodded and ordered the other samurai to protect the young master's safety. He turned into a purple shadow and chased out of the hole. But it was a mess outside, and they were nowhere to be seen. At this moment, in a remote woodshed in Japan's guesthouse, Song Qingshu looked at the 2 pale sisters and shook his head. "You guys didn't bring me along when I asked you to come in. Now you're getting what you deserve, right?" Fu Junyu said weakly, "Thank you." When she said this, the wound on her body was aggravated, and she was in so much pain that she immediately broke out in cold sweat. Fu Junyu looked around and said worriedly, "Why are you still in the Japanese territory? Why don't you run out quickly?" Song Qingshu explained, "The most dangerous place is the safest place. If I run out with you 2, I won't be able to run fast. It won't be long before the Japanese masters catch up with us. It's better to hide here." Chapter 2174. Hearing his words, Fu Junyi looked at him in surprise. She didn't expect the playboy in her heart to have such insight. "Junyu, he's right. Staying here is the best way. Fu Junyu frowned slightly. But the Dong-ing people will find us sooner or later. Jia, sneak out and inform the people in the Korea guesthouse to send someone to pick us up. Song Qingshu shook his head. You and your sister are the best fighters in Korea. Even you are finished. What can the rest of the people do? Unless you go to Shixia to seek justice, but Dong-ing can completely deny this. You have no evidence, and Shixia is unlikely to offend the stronger Dong-ing for the sake of the weaker Korea. Fu Junyu looked upset. It's all my fault. If I hadn't rushed out impulsively just now, I wouldn't be so passive now. Fu Junyi hurriedly comforted her. You don't have to blame yourself. No one expected that the Dong-ing people's martial arts were so high. Sasaki Kojiro was so powerful, and there was still Miyamoto Musashi, who hadn't made a move. Thinking of this, she felt a little desperate. In the whole Korea, perhaps only her master could deal with them, but there were two more powerful swordmasters in Dong-ing. If one day the Dong-ing army really came to the east, how could they resist? In fact, compared with asking for help, the most urgent thing is your injuries. If you don't deal with it, I'm afraid. Song Qingshu looked at their blood-stained clothes and couldn't help sighing that Sasaki Kojiro really didn't know how to show mercy to the fairer sex. He used such a cruel move on the two girls. These injuries won't kill us. Fu Junyi struggled to say, and the cold sweat on her forehead was already pouring down. Although I don't know martial arts, I have heard that you masters can seal acupoints to stop bleeding. Why do you let the blood flow like this? Song Qingshu asked curiously. Fu Junyi turned her face away and ignored him. Fu Junyu explained, We have just been hit by Sasaki Kojiro's yen attack. Now our internal breath is chaotic. I'm afraid we can't use genuine qi for a few hours. How can we seal acupoints to stop bleeding? Song Qingshu raised his eyebrows and showed a playful smile. In that case, let me seal acupoints to stop bleeding. Fu Junyi frowned. You know how? I don't know, but you can teach me. Song Qingshu rubbed his hands together, looking like he was asking for a beating. Anyway, I see that you're just pointing here and there. Fu Junyi snorted and turned her head to the side again. It was obvious that she could not be bothered with him. Fu Junyu, on the other hand, explained patiently, It's not the same. You need vital energy on your finger to block the blood vessels. That's hard to say. As the saying goes, different paths lead to the same destination. What if I'm a man and my strength is greater than yours? What if it really works? It's not true. Dao lead to the same. What I'd say. By me. You, I June. How is that possible? Fu Junyi sneered. Since you're already like this, I might as well give it a shot, Song Qingshu said with a smile. Maybe I'm talented and can learn it in a short time. Who are you calling a dead horse? Fu Junyu was instantly annoyed. Song Qingshu couldn't help but sigh. Women's way of thinking was a little strange. At this time, she actually cared about these issues. Since you guys are unwilling, then take off your clothes and bandage your wounds. It should be the same. What did you say? Fu Junyi was instantly enraged, and the bleeding from his wound increased. Even Fu Junyu, who was at the side, stared at him strangely. Don't you know that I used to hang out with the famous Song Si? I know the structure of the human body very well. It's not difficult to bandage wounds. Song Qingshu patted his chest and said. He thought that Song Si's tiger skin was really useful. Don't you know where we're injured? Fu Junyi gritted her teeth. The house of, I know, but in the eyes of doctors, there is no gender distinction. Song Qingshu looked serious, but his eyes couldn't help but fall on their bleeding ribs and thighs. He thought that Sasaki Kojiro was really insidious, specifically picking such sensitive parts. Go to hell. When we catch our breath, we'll bandage ourselves. We don't need you. Fu Junyi's originally pale face flashed with a hint of red. Are you sure? Looking at your state, I'm afraid that you won't have the strength to move for an hour. This time is enough for you to bleed several times. Song Qingshu said with a smile. How do you know the condition of our injuries? Fu Junyi was secretly surprised. She herself estimated that it would take at least an hour to recover the ability to move. Song Qingshu shrugged. Didn't you just say it yourself? Fu Junyi knew that he was telling the truth, and her eyebrows were tightly twisted together. Why do I always feel that you are a little gloating? Fu Junyi snorted on the side, and her small mouth was raised high. Song Qingshu hurriedly wiped the corner of his mouth. How can I have the opportunity to see the bodies of the two girls? Now that there is such a good opportunity, although I feel a little unkind, I can't help but be a little excited. You! Fu Junyi was furious and wanted to sit up and stab him with a sword, but she was already weak. This time, her heart was attacked by the blood and she instantly fainted. What are you doing? Fu Junyi cried out in surprise. Song Qingshu hugged Fu Junyi and gently placed her on the ground. Do you want her to fall on the ground like this and bruise her face? Fu Junyi finally understood his good intentions, but she still couldn't help but snort. But why do I feel that you are using this opportunity to take advantage of my sister? Song Qingshu replied with a smile. Of course, I am also using this opportunity to take advantage of her. Fu Junyi didn't expect him to be so shameless and honest, and for a moment, she didn't know what to say. Do you want to bandage the wound or not? Just say it. If you hesitate, it will be too late. Looking at the blood seeping out of the ground, Song Qingshu said in a low voice. Fu Junyi's face showed that she was struggling. If my sister is awake, she would definitely rather die than let you touch her. Song Qingshu looked at her quietly, waiting for her decision. All right, when the time comes, I will let my sister blame me. You bandage her. Fu Junyi finally made up her mind, but I will watch from the side, and I will not allow you to do anything to my sister. Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. You can't even move now. If I really have any evil thoughts, how can you stop it? Unless you kill me, otherwise I will definitely settle the score with you later. Fu Junyi braced herself and said, but she also knew that what she said was the truth. Chapter 2175. You! Fu Junyi was furious when she saw him tearing her sister's clothes. Her wound is long and deep, so it needs to be bandaged thoroughly. Song Qingshu knew what she was thinking. As he explained, he tore a clean strip of cloth from Fu Junyi's shirt and bandaged her wound. At the same time, he used his body to block Fu Junyi's view. His fingertips pressed on the surrounding acupoints without leaving a trace to help stop the bleeding. Fu Junyi frowned. She knew he was telling the truth, but she didn't know whether she should stop him or not. She saw him take out a porcelain bottle and sprinkle some brown powder on her sister's wound. She asked hurriedly, "What is this?" Tian Qi Shark's gallbladder powder. It's an elixir developed by the master of Peach Blossom Island. It's very effective in treating external injuries. Song Qingshu had sent Huang Rong back to Peach Blossom Island for a while. Huang Rong knew he was wandering in Jianghu and was worried about him. She gave him a lot of elixirs from Peach Blossom Island. If Huang Yaoshe saw it, he would be heartbroken. The master of Peach Blossom Island, one of the 5 greats of the Central Plains. I heard my master mention him in Goryeo. I heard that he was not only good at martial arts, but also a genius in refining elixirs. Fu Junyi looked fascinated. She suddenly thought of something and her expression changed. She stared at Song Qingshu and asked, "How did you get elixirs from such a person?" Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat, but he replied in a normal tone, "A friend gave it to me. My family has some influence in the imperial court." Fu Junyi knew that the Jia family was the most powerful family in the southern Song dynasty. Someone must have tried to get elixirs from Huang Yaoshe and sent them to the Jia family to curry favor. Song Qingshu applied the medicine for Fu Junyi and then bandaged her wound. During the whole process, he inevitably touched her skin. If it was a few years ago, the smoothness and elasticity of her skin might have made him restless. But now, he had seen countless people and the whole process was extremely calm. The only thought that came to his mind was that the Goryeo woman was really fair. Fu Junyu stared at him during the whole process. Seeing that he didn't take advantage of her, she let out a sigh of relief. He gently put Fu Junyu on the pile of firewood. Song Qingshu looked back at Fu Junyu and said, "It's your turn." Fu Junyu's face turned red. "My injuries aren't as serious as big sister's. There's no need." Song Qingshu pointed at her ribs. "It's still bleeding. I won't die anytime soon." Fu Junyu still refused. "That's not necessarily true. If you bleed, you'll only last a little longer than your sister." Song Qingshu saw that she was still pursing her lips and shaking her head, so he changed his way of persuading her. "If you don't treat such a big wound in time, it'll leave a scar in the future." Scars? Sure enough, Fu Junyu didn't care about her life and death just a second ago, but when she heard that it might leave a scar, she was scared. Song Qingshu shook the medicine bottle in his hand. "This is Island Master Huang's spiritual medicine. He will be fine as long as he heals it in time." Fu Junyu bit her lips tightly, clearly having an intense mental struggle. After a long time, she replied, "If you dare to take advantage of me, I'll kill you." Seeing her scared and conflicted expression, Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. "Don't worry. In my hometown, it's not a problem for a woman to let a man put sunscreen on her naked body. What about you?" Fu Junyu was shocked. "Where's your hometown? Why is it so promiscuous?" You won't know even if I tell you." Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on, so he decided not to explain. "No, you have to cover your eyes." Fu Junyu suddenly thought of something and hurriedly stopped him. Song Qingshu was stunned. "Why didn't you tell me when I was bandaging your sister's wound?" These women's reactions are really similar. In the past, when something like this happened, they also wanted me to cover my eyes. Chinese Fu Junyu blushed and looked at her sister guiltily. Seeing that she was still unconscious, she secretly heaved a sigh of relief. "I was too flustered just now, so I didn't think about it." Song Qingshu picked up a strip of cloth and waved it in front of her eyes. "Are you sure you want me to cover my eyes?" "I don't mind, but don't blame me if I can't see with my eyes covered. If my hand touches something that shouldn't be touched, you can't blame me." Now, he naturally had no interest in taking advantage of this kind of opportunity to take advantage of her. "You." Fu Junyu frowned, but she quickly gave up. "Forget it, don't cover your eyes." Song Qingshu shrugged and leaned over to treat her wound. When the dress around the wound was torn open, Fu Junyu's whole body trembled slightly. Her eyes were faintly filled with tears, as if she was about to cry at any time. Seeing this, Song Qingshu really couldn't tease her anymore. Throughout the whole process, he treated her wound with a serious expression. After about the time it took for a joss stick to burn, he finally finished bandaging her wound. All right. Do you have to look like you've been insulted?" Song Qingshu took off his coat and divided it into two. One half covered Fu Junyu's body, and the other covered her wound. Who knew that after hearing his words, Fu Junyu finally couldn't help crying. "For so many years, I've been fantasizing about the situation of showing my pure body in front of my lover. Who knew that all this was ruined by you?" Song Qingshu looked depressed. "You say it as if I really did something to you. Do you also lose your chastity when your skin is exposed in Korea?" "You're still talking." Fu Junyu cried even more sadly. After all, she was still young. Today, she experienced a moment of life and death, and her family almost left. Now that this happened, she finally couldn't control her emotions. Song Qingshu said with a smile, "This matter is known only by heaven and earth, you and I. As long as you don't say it, no one will know." "But I know it myself." Fu Junyu became more and more regretful. "If I knew it would be like this, I wouldn't have let you treat me just now." Song Qingshu pointed at Fu Junyu. Then are you going to let me see your sister's body, and you stay out of it? When that happens, what will you do to her? Fu Junyu blinked her eyes. How could there be such a shameless person in this world? But for a moment, she didn't know how to refute. Junyu, did he bully you? At this time, Fu Junyu slowly woke up and vaguely heard the two arguing. Sister, you're awake? Fu Junyu was immediately surprised. Fu Junyu nodded. Just as she was about to say something, she suddenly noticed the condition of her clothes. Not only her chest, but even her thighs had been bandaged. She suddenly raised her head and stared at Song Qingshu. You did this. What else? Song Qingshu waved his hand. You don't have to thank me too much. Fu Junyu gritted her teeth. Did you see anything that you shouldn't have seen? Song Qingshu thought for a moment and answered, If I said I didn't see anything, I don't think you would believe me. As for what you shouldn't have seen, I don't know. I think I saw everything. I'm going to kill you. Fu Junyu felt a rush of blood rushing to her head. She struggled to pick up the sword beside her. Song Qingshu was shocked and hurriedly shrank back. Is this how you treat your savior? Fu Junyu hurriedly persuaded, Sister, don't blame him. I agreed to let him save you just now. If you want to blame someone, blame me. Jia, don't deliberately make my sister angry. Chapter 2176. Fu Junyu's countenance changed. After a long while, she let out a long sigh. We Koreans aren't people who would bite the hand that feeds us. This time around, we sisters were lucky to have Gongzi's help. Song Qingshu was stunned. He had thought that she would kick up a fuss after waking up. Who knew that she would be so easy to talk to? He couldn't help but have a good impression of her. Miss, you're too polite. We came together, so naturally we should leave together. This is what I should do. Hearing him say that this was what he should do, the two sisters recalled that he had seen their bodies. For a moment they had strange expressions on their faces, thinking that this was what he should do. Just when Fu Junyu was about to say something, Song Qingshu suddenly frowned. Shoo, someone is coming over here. Quickly hide. After speaking, he got up and helped the two sisters to a pile of firewood at the side. After that, he brought a pile of straw over to cover the bloodstains on the ground with firewood. Fu Junyi harumph. Don't come up with any ideas and take advantage of us. As she spoke, she frowned because she had also heard the footstep. She was secretly surprised. Could it be that her hearing had deteriorated due to her injuries? Seeing that Song Qingshu was still standing outside, Fu Junyi became anxious. What are you still standing there for? Quickly hide in here. Song Qingshu was stunned. After that, he smiled. Sure. He had originally planned to climb up to the beam to hide, but seeing that they had taken the initiative to invite him, he naturally wouldn't stand on ceremony. He directly crawled in between the two girls. The feeling of hugging one girl on each side was really not bad. The space in the pile of firewood was small to begin with. It could be said that the three of them were squeezed together. They could clearly feel the heat and elasticity of each other's bodies. Song Qingshu was calm and composed, but the two sisters were suffering. Their faces were red, but they couldn't say anything. Stay away from me. Fu Junyu finally couldn't hold it in and spoke first. Fu Junyi, who was at the side, had a strange expression on her face. She thought that the place was only so big. If she stayed away from him, wouldn't all of them be in her arms? She hurriedly said, Be quiet, they're coming in. Creak. The door was pushed open and a few Japanese samurai came in to search the surroundings. They were mumbling a bunch of gibberish as though they were conversing. It was a pity that Song Qingshu couldn't understand a single word. He guessed that he could only understand words like yami. Very soon, the Japanese samurai arrived before the pile of firewood. Song Qingshu could clearly sense that the bodies of the Fu sisters had stiffened a lot. Usually, the sisters would definitely not place these minions in their eyes. But now that they were heavily injured, they had no strength to resist. If they were to fall into the hands of the Japanese, it was obvious what kind of miserable fate awaited them. The Japanese samurai clearly noticed the firewood as well. He drew his sword and stabbed it. Song Qingshu pinched his fingers lightly, thinking that he couldn't just watch as the two sisters died. He couldn't do anything even if his martial arts were to be exposed. Just as the Japanese samurai was about to stab in, another of his companions suddenly ran in from the door, shouting loudly. The samurai in the room couldn't be bothered to search and hurriedly ran out. Song Qingshu had a dumbfounded look on his face. They came and went in such a hurry, what on earth are they doing? Fu Junyu explained, those people said that the higher-ups have ordered them to lie in ambush near the galley guesthouse, waiting for us to walk right into their trap. Song Qingshu couldn't help but praise. I have to say that the Japanese are quite smart. If it wasn't for him, the two sisters would definitely return to the guesthouse to get reinforcements. Even if they were lucky enough to escape, they would still fall into the hands of the Japanese. Fu Junyu, who was at the side, had a grim look on her face. The Japanese have been internally divided for a long time. The various powers have been fighting for 100 years, and they call it the Warring States period. Naturally, they are all proficient in the art of war. On the contrary, our galley has been peaceful for a long time, and our country is ruled by powerful officials. If we were to really go to war, I'm afraid Song Qingshu couldn't help but admit that her judgment was very reasonable. In history, the few times the Japanese had invaded Gaoli, it was almost always a one-sided conquest. In the end, they would have to rely on the dynasties of the Central Plains to clean up the mess. Everyone thought of their own worries, and for a time, everyone fell into silence. Until, how long do you plan to hug us like this? Fu Junyi finally couldn't take it anymore. Song Qingshu hurriedly got up and climbed out of the woodpile. My bad. I forgot about this for a moment. Where are you pressing your hand? Soon, Fu Junyu cried out in surprise. The space is too small. Forgive me. If it wasn't for the fact that you saved us, I would definitely stab you to death when I recover. After a while, they finally came out of the woodpile. Fu Junyi was a little surprised. What medicine did you give me just now? How did I recover so quickly? She originally thought that she wouldn't be able to move freely for a few hours, but she didn't expect to be able to move now. The miracle medicine of our Imperial Academy of Medicine. With his previous experience, this time, Song Qingshu didn't dare to tell them that he gave them the 9 revolutions bear snake pill. The most powerful medicine of the Xiaoyao sect had the effect of bringing the dead back to life. Treating their injuries was naturally a piece of cake. I didn't expect the medicine of the great Song to be so powerful. Fu Junyi had traveled the martial world, so she naturally knew how magical this medicine was. For a moment, she couldn't help but be in awe of the celestial empire recorded in the history book. Song Qingshu didn't want to delve into this topic. He hurriedly asked, "This isn't a place to stay for long. Now that the Dong-ing people are guarding outside your embassy, what do you plan to do?" Fu Junyu said, "Can we ask the people of the Great Song for help?" Song Qingshu looked troubled. This time, the imperial court didn't send many people, and they don't want to cause trouble. This was the style of the Song dynasty. If they could avoid trouble, they would. They wouldn't easily offend a powerful enemy for a weak country. Fu Junyu pursed her lips. "I thought that your family was powerful in the kingdom of Song, but it turns out that you're also useless." Song Qingshu could only smile bitterly at her sharp tongue. Fu Junyi thought for a moment and said, "Let's go to the Class 1 hall and ask for help from Shixia. They are in charge of the investigation of this case, and they are also the host. There's no reason for them to stand aside and do nothing." Song Qingshu nodded. "That's a good idea." After their discussion, they rushed to the Class 1 hall. The sisters were heavily injured. Although they could move, they were still weak. They needed Song Qingshu to support them from the side. Be it Fu Junyi or Fu Junyu, no man could get within 3 feet of them. However, when they thought about how he had seen everything that shouldn't have been seen when he was bandaging their wounds, they hesitated for a moment before letting him support them. On the way out of the Donging embassy, they ran into trouble a few times, but Song Qingshu relied on his powerful divine sense to avoid them. As a result, the sisters kept sighing about their good luck. They didn't even run into a single guard. Just like that, they arrived at the Class 1 hall. Yelu Nancian happened to be there as well. When she heard that Jia Baoyu from the southern Song dynasty had come, she ran out excitedly. However, when she saw him hugging two girls, her smile froze on her face. Song Qingshu also felt a little guilty. He hurriedly explained, "They're heavily injured. It's hard for them to stand up straight." Yelu Nancian waved her hand and found some maids to help them. The Fu sisters didn't care about being supported. They hurriedly explained their purpose of coming and asked for help from Xixia. Chapter 2177. They didn't expect such a direct rejection. The Fu sisters were stunned. Song Qingshu opened his mouth, but wisely chose not to say anything in the end. He felt that the atmosphere was a little strange. Why are you like this? Are you not going to care about what happened in Western Xia? Fu Junyu was a little more impulsive than her sister. She couldn't help but ask. You said that the Japanese killed your people. Where is the evidence? Yelu Nancian asked. Evidence? Fu Junyu was stunned. We heard it with our own ears, how can it be fake? Yelu Nancian shook her head. You are related to the victims, your testimony is not valid. The people from other countries won't believe you. And him, he heard it too. Fu Junyu pulled Song Qingshu over. Actually, she was lying. Song Qingshu wasn't there at the time, but she believed that with their friendship, he wouldn't make things difficult for her. As expected, Song Qingshu hesitated but didn't say anything. Yelu Nancian's gaze fell on their linked hands. Her tone became colder. He is in charge of this case, but his testimony is still not convincing. Otherwise, he won't be able to find the truth. How can he convince the public if he just casually says that one of them is the murderer? Song Qingshu nodded in agreement. Just based on their side of the story, the Japanese would be able to deny it. This won't do, that won't do, what do you want? Fu Junyu was going crazy. Yelu Nancian sighed. I've already said it so many times, evidence when handling a case, it's all about irrefutable evidence. I can't possibly go convict another country's envoy just because of your empty word. Fu Junyu wanted to say more, but Fu Junyu stopped her. We understand. Thank you, Crown Princess. Seeing that the two girls were about to leave, Song Qingshu felt awkward. He couldn't leave, but he also couldn't stay. He could only remind them. The Japanese are now guarding the Gaoli guest house. Yelu Nancian frowned and waved her hand at the people beside her. Men, send someone to send these two ladies back. Bring more people from Class 1 hall with you. The other two ladies are injured, let them sit in my carriage. Yes. Someone had already started to choose experts to escort them. Many thanks, Crown Princess. Fu Junyi hastily bowed to express her gratitude. Normally, she wouldn't need to do such a thing. But now that the two of them were seriously injured, Fu Junyi's gesture was like sending charcoal in snowy weather. No matter how arrogant the Dong-ing people were, they wouldn't dare to openly attack the imperial chariot of the Crown Princess of Xixia in the territory of Xixia. Before leaving, Fu Junyu couldn't help but look at Song Qingshu. Aren't you coming with us? Before Song Qingshu could reply, Yelu Nancian grabbed his arm. I still have something to discuss with young Master Jia, please return first. Fu Junyu pouted, but she had just received a favor from Song Qingshu, so it was not good for her to refuse. She could only glare fiercely at Song Qingshu before leaving with her sister. That little girl's eyes were full of hidden bitterness. After the two sisters left, Yelu Nancian dismissed the other subordinates as well, leaving only her and Song Qingshu in the room. I love reading Network. Sensing the different meaning in her tone, Song Qingshu couldn't help but laugh. Nansien, I'm surprised that you're jealous. She had always been arrogant. Although they had a good relationship, they always felt that they were more than friends, but not lovers. After all, their relationship was only because of that accident. Now that he saw that she was jealous, how could Song Qingshu not be happy? Who's jealous? Yelu Nansien blushed and hurriedly denied. Also, I'm not making things difficult for them because of you. They're just too unreliable. If I had real evidence, I could have asked Class 1 Hall to help me take care of those Dongying people. But they don't have any evidence, so how can I let Xixia get involved in the battle of another country? Song Qingshu nodded in understanding. That's right. I thought Fu Junyu was impulsive, but I didn't expect her sister to be so unreliable as well. She actually fought with the Dongying people without any evidence. If I knew this, I wouldn't have brought them. He didn't know the situation at that time and just thought that the two sisters rushed out together to take revenge. Yelu Nansien was interested. You found out? How did you find out that it was the Dongying people? Only then did Song Qingshu roughly tell her about the Dongying ninja's assassination attempt. Of course, he only briefly mentioned the matter involving the princess. Why does the princess always go to your place? Yelu Nanxian's sixth sense told her that there was something wrong. Song Qingshu hurriedly said, Actually, I've been thinking about who leaked the information. What do you mean? Seeing his serious expression, Yelu Nansien couldn't help but feel nervous. The princess came to me saying that she had crucial information about the murder case, but then I was assassinated by the Dongying people. At that time, only the Southern Song people heard about it. I don't know who informed the Dongying people. Song Qingshu's expression was solemn. Could it be that the peerless city of the dual cultivators leaked the information? Yelu Nansien asked. Song Qingshu shook his head. No, the princess didn't know anything about the murder case, she just made it up in the Southern Song guesthouse. Suddenly, he noticed that the atmosphere was a bit strange and quickly shut his mouth. Yelu Nansien said with a half-smile, Oh, so the princess found an excuse to meet you. Ahem. Song Qingshu hurriedly drank some tea to hide the awkwardness in his heart. Talking about another woman in front of another woman, no matter how he looked at it, wasn't a wise choice. Yelu Nansien didn't pursue the matter any further. She stopped joking around and said seriously, Don't go around fooling around for the next few days. The betrothal contest will officially start tomorrow. Don't make it so that you can't be found by then. Qinglu will be furious. Oh, it starts tomorrow? Song Qingshu's expression changed. Yelu Nansien nodded. After a discussion with Wan Qing and Qinglu, we decided that the betrothal contest will be divided into a martial test and a literary test. I don't know if it's because the prince is too tempting, or because Qinglu's beauty has spread far and wide, but there are too many people here, so we will first have a martial test to eliminate some of them, then the top 32 will enter the literary test. Song Qingshu was speechless. So many people, only 32 can advance. The process must be very cruel. How are you going to compete? Yelu Nansien took out a scroll and pointed at it, explaining, First, we will participate in the preliminary selection, then we will be randomly assigned 4 people to a group. The final winner will participate in the next elimination round. The elimination round will be a 2-on-1 battle. The winner will continue to advance, and so on. Song Qingshu frowned. There are 2 questions. First, did they prepare for the various countries' princes and princesses? If a few important people meet in the group at the beginning, and only one can advance, it will cause dissatisfaction from all sides. The other question, if you lose in the elimination round, you will be eliminated. Chapter 2178. Are we going to stop after the top 32, or are we going to keep competing until the champion is decided? Song Qingshu asked curiously. Originally, the top 32 is enough, but Qinglu said she wants you to help her win first place so she can get married in style. Yelu Nansien chuckled. As the saying goes, there is no first place in literature and no second place in martial arts. Once the competition starts, people from all over the world will want to decide the winner. Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. This is troublesome. Under normal circumstances, I don't mind, but now I'm using Jia Baoyu's identity. How can I win first place? Yelu Nanxian gloated. I'm not sure about that. In any case, Qinglu said she will only marry the final winner. As for how to win, you figure it out yourself. Thinking of Li Qinglu's strange appearance, this could really be her idea. Song Qingshu was at a loss. If that's the case, then what's the point of the written test? Yelu Nanxian chuckled. Aren't you afraid of accidents happening before? If you really fail and don't win first place, Qinglu will really marry someone else. That's why we decided on the written test. After all, the written test is different from the martial test. It's easier to choose people according to our wishes. It's easier to manipulate things behind the scenes, I understand. Song Qingshu's worry finally turned to joy. It seems like even though Qinglu said that, she is still on my side. Yelu Nanxian said, Qinglu will marry you no matter what, but her desire to marry in style is also real. So, Brother Song, it's best if you win first place for her, she will be very happy. After all, you know she can't marry you openly, so she will find some balance in this area. Song Qingshu replied seriously, Don't worry, I will definitely win first place. But he was secretly having a headache. How could he win first place? Once his disguise was exposed, it could easily cause a chain reaction. These are your opponents for tomorrow. Do you want to take a look? Yelu Nanxian turned around and took out a list. Song Qingshu shook his head, not in the mood to look, no need. The participants in the group selection were usually ugly people, there was no need to pay too much attention to them. That's true. I'll show you the matchups after the group stage results are out. Yelu Nanxian was very clear that with her lover's martial arts, even if he was one of the finalists, she didn't need to worry too much about him. Of course, whether or not he could reveal his true strength was the biggest problem. So when the time comes, you'll definitely be pleasantly surprised by the gift that Qinglu prepares for you. Thinking of all the interesting things that happened in the past, Yelu Nanxian couldn't help but smile. Li Qinglu, that lass, really knew how to play tricks on people. Song Qingshu glanced at her with a strange expression, but he just happened to recall something and didn't pursue the matter. Right, have you set up bets for the groom search competition? Betting stalls? Yelu Nanxian blanked, unable to react in time. This is such a good opportunity to make money. I can't let it go to waste. Song Qingshu thought of the World Cup matches in his previous life. Every time that happened, there would be a carnival of betting. Who knew how much profit it brought to the betting industry? How could he miss such an opportunity? After all, in order to support so many factions and armies, even though there were taxes, money was still flowing out like water. Because the match has just been announced, the gambling houses in the city can't set up the betting stalls so quickly. Yelu Nanxian replied, Take back all that authority, let the officials set up the betting stalls. Song Qingshu said excitedly. Yelu Nanxian was a little troubled. Fighting with the people for profit, it wouldn't be good if word got out. Song Qingshu frowned. Only then did he remember that the officials in this world were all righteous and righteous. If he wasn't careful, he'd be scolded to death. How could they be as efficient as the betting stalls in his previous life? If that's the case, then we won't show up directly. Let the gambling houses be our agents and give them some of the soup. We can also make use of their channels and expertise. Song Qingshu thought for a moment and said, Remember to raise my payout a little, so that when the time comes, they can bet more on me. Yelu Nanxian pursed her lips into a smile. That won't be a problem. Class 1 Hall has gathered a lot of people with talents in this field. I'll let them follow up on this. By the way, do you remember what you promised me last time? Song Qingshu was startled. What is it? Yelu Nanxian's mouth twitched, her face full of resentment. You really forgot. Song Qinshu broke out in a cold sweat. His mind was in a mess these days. He really couldn't remember. He was about to apologize when his eyes suddenly fell on Yelu Qi's name on the table. An idea flashed in his mind. How could I forget? I have to accompany you to see Liao's relatives. You still remember? Yelu Nanxian's worry immediately turned to joy, but she quickly sighed. They're not my relatives. My relatives have long. They've just been away from home for a long time. I just want to see my hometown people. Song Qinshu knew that anything he said now would be useless, so he hugged her and gently patted her back to comfort her. After a while, Yelu Nanxian calmed down, blushing, and gently pushed him away. This is Class 1 Hall, and I'm the Western Xia's crown princess. It's not good to be seen hugging another man. Song Qinshu was depressed. Let's wait and see when you can completely make these forces our own, then I won't have to deliberately avoid people. Hearing him describe the scene, Yelu Nanxian couldn't help but feel a little weak. She secretly spat and hurriedly said, "Let's go quickly." Her carriage had already sent the Fu sisters, but as the crown princess, she couldn't only have one carriage. Someone quickly prepared a backup, and the two of them went to Liao's residence. Song Qinshu naturally wouldn't appear in the image of Jia Baoyu, so he returned to his original appearance. When Yelu Qi heard the news, he hurriedly came out. Yelu Qi greets princess. Before Yelu Nanxian got married, Liao had made her a princess. Brother Yelu, please get up, we're brother and sister, there's no need to say these things. Yelu Nanxian hurriedly helped him up. Marrying you to Western Xia, it's really hard on you. Yelu Qi sighed. In the past, he and this distant cousin of his had traveled the martial world, so he naturally knew how arrogant she was. Now, she could only marry to a border country like Western Xia, and as soon as she married, Western Xia fell into chaos. She became a widow before she even got married. Her fate was so miserable that it made people pity her. Brother Yelu is worrying too much. Sharing the country's worries is my duty. Not to mention, I also saved my family. What's there to regret? Yelu Nanxian calmly replied. Yelu Qi was a little surprised. The other's mood wasn't as miserable as he imagined. Brother Yelu, I also brought an acquaintance. Yelu Nanxian's face heated up. She didn't know why she felt a little embarrassed. Who? Yelu Qi curiously asked. Yelu Nanxian had Liao and the others leave, then beckoned to the door. Brother Song, come in. Seeing Song Qinshu come in, Yelu Qi's eyes widened. My lord, I haven't seen you for so long, I didn't expect to see you here. Song Qinshu hurriedly said, Don't be so distant, you're my brother-in-law. Yelu Qi seriously said, If it weren't for you risking your life to escort us, my family would have been destroyed long ago. Not to mention, you gave us a place to settle down, and later successfully brought us back to Liao. I can't thank you enough. Feeling the sincerity in his tone, Song Qinshu couldn't help but sigh. Yelu Qi was indeed a gentleman. Chapter 2179. Xiao Feng. Thinking of that heroic man, Song Qinshu couldn't help but smile. He would have to find a chance to get Z and Aza back as soon as possible. Now that he thought about it, his previous actions were a bit too reckless. But Azu knew about his disguise, it was a bit troublesome. Ha ha ha, there's no need to call me, I'm already out. A hearty laugh rang out as a burly man walked out from the inner hall. His eyes were like a tiger's, and he carried an oppressive aura. Who else could it be but Xiao Feng? Brother Xiao. Song Qinshu walked over and looked him up and down. Long time no see, your martial arts have become more refined. Xiao Feng couldn't help but shake his head. Compared to you, there's still a long way to go. The more I practice, the more I show off my martial arts, but you become more and more reserved. If someone didn't know better, they would think you don't know any martial arts at all. The gap between us is getting bigger and bigger. You two talk about martial arts as soon as you see each other. Yelu Nanxian couldn't help but roll her eyes at the two. Song Qinshu laughed. That's right, This time I'm bringing little sister Nancian back to visit relatives. You two talk more about your hometown. Yeluchi ran over to carry a big pile of things. Nancian, these are the gifts that the family asked me to bring you. Although her birth parents were no longer around, such a big family still had some relatives. Previously, the family was only saved because she sacrificed herself to get married, so everyone was grateful to her. Seeing this, Yelu Nancian choked up, while Yeluchi told her about the recent happenings in Liao. Song Qingshu didn't disturb them. Instead he asked Xiao Feng, why don't I see ya? Azu? Xiao Feng frowned. I came alone this time. Noticing his expression, Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. He hurriedly asked, when are you going to invite me to your wedding? It'll probably take some time. Xiao Feng hesitated for a moment before sighing in the end. Brother Song is not an outsider, so there's nothing to hide. The main thing is that I've been feeling that there's something wrong with Azu recently. Sometimes, her personality is a little like her sister, Z. I don't know if something happened that caused her to change her personality. It's not very pleasant to stay with her, so I used the excuse of helping Yeluchi find a spouse to come out for some fresh air. It's good to give the two of them some space to calm down temporarily. Song Qingshu smiled and said, girls need to be coaxed. But in his heart, he was secretly vigilant. Xiao Feng was rough on the outside but meticulous on the inside. He was once the leader of a gang and later the king of the southern courtyard of Liao. His methods and abilities were all dragons among men. Before, he didn't think about it in that direction, so he didn't notice it. Now that he had started to suspect Z, she definitely couldn't hide it for long. It seems that I have to exchange Z and Zhu back immediately. As for Zhu knowing my secret, I can think of other ways to control her. After a few years, when the dust settles, I'm not afraid that she will reveal everything. As for the possibility of releasing Azu, he had also thought about it carefully. Azu's personality was actually very introverted and deep. She would hide everything in her stomach and let herself bear all the pain alone. Otherwise, she wouldn't have told Xiao Feng everything in the original work and run to her death. So, in summary, if he exchanged Azu with him, the secret would most likely not be leaked. Of course, the most reliable method was to kill her and end all troubles once and for all. But in the end, Song Qingshu wasn't a cold-blooded person. He couldn't do such a crazy thing. Brother Song, what are you thinking about? Seeing that he was lost in thought, Xiao Feng called out to him a few times. No, nothing. Song Qingshu hurriedly changed the topic. I'm just curious about who Brother Zhao's opponents are this time. I'm sure they'll be in despair when they draw you. Xiao Feng smiled bitterly and said, you also know that it's impossible for me to marry that princess. I'm participating in this completely for the sake of peace and to help Yeluchi. In the middle, I'll find a time to withdraw myself. Hearing this, Song Qingshu secretly let out a sigh of relief. This was good. Otherwise, with Xiao Feng's battle strength, it would be impossible for him to defeat him without revealing his true strength. All right, let's not talk about these troublesome things. It's not easy to meet you. Come, let's drink a few dozen bowls. Xiao Feng pulled him into the house and brought out a few large jars of wine. 61 Literature Library. Song Qingshu's heroic spirit was aroused. Fine, whoever drinks until they collapse first is a dog. Coming from the future, he had been baptized by all kinds of high-alcohol liquor. How could he drink this world's low-alcohol liquor? Xiao Feng's face darkened. You're not allowed to use your qi to dissolve it, otherwise, I won't be able to drink as much as you. Don't worry, I won't use my qi. Song Qingshu patted his chest as a guarantee. Xiao Feng was overjoyed. Good, then let's fight for 300 rounds. A few hours later, when Yelu Nancian brought Song Qingshu out of the Liao guesthouse, the sky was already dark. As she helped him into the carriage, she grumbled, if I knew you would get so drunk, I wouldn't have brought you here today. Song Qingshu pointed to the sky, his face beaming with joy. I drank Xiao Feng until he collapsed. Didn't you collapse too? Yilu Nanxian felt a headache coming on. You guys still have a martial arts competition tomorrow. If you're drunk like this, it's a problem whether you'll wake up or not. Don't worry, I'm not drunk, I can still drink another 300 bowls without a problem. Song Qingshu patted his chest loudly, but after 2 hits, he felt a little nauseous. He hurriedly stuck his head out of the window and began to vomit, attracting the attention of the guards accompanying him. Yilu Nanxian's face turned red. She was thankful that the guards accompanying her today were all her trusted guards, otherwise, as the crown princess, she would lose all her face. She lightly patted his back, and used the towel and water basin prepared by the Liao guest house to wipe his face. Drink some water and rinse your mouth. Water? I don't want to drink, I want to drink wine. Song Qingshu directly refused. Yilu Nanxian's face darkened, she could only coax him. This is wine, the Western Xia's unique illuminating heaven brew. Then I'll have to try it. Song Qingshu's interest was immediately piqued. He took the bowl and gulped it down. Pa, what kind of wine is this? It's so bland. Song Qingshu directly spat out the window. How can this be your Western Xia's famous wine? Looks like the Western Xia's people are living in an abyss of suffering. Yes, I'll take you to drink better wine another day. Yilu Nanxian laughed involuntarily. He was usually so high and mighty, but now he was drunk like a child, which made her feel that he was even more real and cute. Song Qingshu turned over, just in time to meet her bright eyes. He felt that they were especially charming. He hugged her and pressed her under his body, kissing her madly. Yilu Nanxian didn't expect his sudden attack. She subconsciously cried out in surprise. Crown Princess, what happened? A guard heard the commotion and hurriedly knocked on the door to ask. No, nothing. Yilu Nanxian hurriedly dodged while replying. The guards weren't idiots, they were used to this kind of thing in the imperial family, so they looked at their noses and lowered their heads. Inside the carriage, Yilu Nanxian was pleading softly, Song, there are people outside, and they're on the street. Chapter 2180. Just as she was suffering, Yilu Nanxian noticed that the man on top of her had stopped moving. Only then did she notice that he had fallen asleep due to his drunkenness. Yilu Nanxian didn't know whether to laugh or cry, but she also let out a long sigh of relief. Perhaps only Li Qinglu could do something like this. She didn't have the guts to do it like this. She got up and put Song Qingshu's head on her lap. Yilu Nanxian found that half of her body was exposed to the air. She blushed and spat. What a bastard! She hurriedly tidied up her clothes, but there wasn't much anger in her voice. She knocked on the carriage wall and ordered the guards outside. Drive slower. She wanted to take advantage of this opportunity to let him sleep a little longer and sober up. After all, he was going to represent the Southern Song in the competition tomorrow. They couldn't bring him back to the palace, so they could only hand him over to the Southern Song residence. Yes. The guards outside exchanged glances. Each of them had an understanding expression. If Yilu Nanxian knew that they were thinking the wrong thing, she would definitely whip them. But no matter how slow the carriage was, they would eventually reach the destination. After nearly 2 hours, they finally arrived outside the Southern Song residence. Most of the people from the Southern Song residence had already fallen asleep. Of course, Xue Baochai and the others were still awake, worrying about Jia Baoyu's disappearance. When they saw him return, they couldn't help but be overjoyed. But when she saw that it was the Western Xia's crown princess who brought him back, her expression couldn't help but become a bit strange. Yilu Nanxian didn't care too much. She kept telling her, Miss Xue, he drank a little too much, I'll have to trouble you to take care of him. On the road, she had already changed Song Qingshu's appearance to Jia Baoyu's. Xue Baochai took Song Qingshu from her hands and put him on her shoulder. She had a stomach full of questions to ask, but looking at the crown princess's beautiful face, she was too embarrassed to ask. Yelu Nansien reminded him again and again before reluctantly leaving. At the same time, she ordered her guards to stay behind and protect Song Qingshu in secret. Although she knew that with her lover's cultivation level, if someone really tried to harm him, he would immediately sense the danger and wake up. Still, it was better to have an extra layer of insurance. After watching Yelu Nansien leave, Shui Baochai supported Song Qingshu as they walked into the courtyard. It was so late and she didn't want to disturb the others. Who did you drink with the crown princess? Even she herself didn't quite believe it. Although Yelu Nanshien's face was a little red, it was clear that she hadn't drunk much. How could she possibly make him this drunk? Crown princess. Song Qingshu mumbled vaguely. Why does it feel softer? Shui Baochai's entire body trembled, and she almost kicked the man on top of her, because at this moment, his hand was on her chest, and from time to time, he would pinch a few times. If you weren't drunk, Shui Baochai pried his hand away and gritted her teeth in anger. Why won't you let me touch? Song Qingshu couldn't help but mutter. Shui Baochai was angry at first and was about to explode when she suddenly realized what he was implying. Did the crown princess just let you touch her? Who is the crown princess? Song Qingshu asked vaguely. The one that just brought you back. I think she's called Yelu Nansien? Shui Baochai blinked her large eyes, glowing with curiosity as she looked at him. Nansien, of course she would let me touch her. Song Qingshu smiled smugly. Hearing his answer, Shui Baochai was shocked. At this time, she didn't care about being jealous and hurriedly said, Do you know who she is? In the future, don't contact her. No wonder he felt that the crown princess treated Baoyu so well these days. There was something going on between the two of them. Okay, composition network, why? Song Qingshu looked at her with sleepy eyes. She's the crown princess of the Xixia country. She represents the Xixia country. If people find out that she's with you, Shui Baochai said angrily. When the time comes, the Xixia people will get angry. Not to mention you, maybe all of us won't be able to survive. Don't worry, it's okay. Song Qingshu waved his hand indifferently. You bastard! Seeing his indifferent look, Shui Baochai was so angry that her teeth itched. She really couldn't figure out why the crown princess would like this naughty boy. Apart from being handsome, good at pleasing women, and having a good family background, he didn't have any good point. He thought of the rumor he had heard before that the crown princess had just married to the Western Xia country, but the Western Xia country had been in civil strife. The crown prince had died before he could get married. She must have been lonely and had happened to meet Baoyu. That was why the heavenly thunder and earthly fire were triggered. The more Shui Baochai thought about it, the angrier she got. She wanted to throw him on the ground directly, but seeing his drunk appearance, she was a little reluctant. We can only wait until he sobers up. Shui Baochai hurriedly ordered the servants to bring hot water, and she would take care of him personally. After a long time, Song Qingshu was awakened by a shake. Looking at the beautiful woman in front of him, he couldn't help but exclaim, Sister Bao, why are you here? Are you disappointed that your crown princess is not serving you? Shui Baochai sneered. Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. What crown princess? What are you talking about? Keep pretending. Last night, you admitted that you and her. Forget it, I can't say it. Shui Baochai's face was slightly red, not knowing whether it was because of shame or anger. No way. Song Qingshu was dumbfounded, thinking that drinking was really a hindrance. He shouldn't drink in the future, at least not compete with Xiao Feng in drinking. That bull drank like drinking water. Did I say anything else? Song Qingshu carefully asked. What if he revealed some secret that he shouldn't have? You have a relationship with other women? Shui Baochai instantly stood up, looking at him in shock. Seeing her reaction, Song Qingshu finally let out a sigh of relief. Like I said, even if he was drunk, he wasn't someone who would speak nonsense. No, no, I'm just worried that I accidentally confessed to you last night when I was drunk. Xue Baochai had never experienced such a direct scene before. She immediately hid to the side and became bashful. No, you didn't say anything, it's just that to me. Forget it, there's nothing. Really, there's nothing? Song Qingshu looked at her suspiciously. Of course there's nothing. Xue Baochai glared at him with a red face. There was still a strange feeling in her chest, but how could she say it? Don't change the topic. I'm asking about you and the Crown Princess. There's nothing going on between me and the Crown Princess. How could that be? How could someone like the Crown Princess fall for someone like me? Song Qingshu lied without a blush. You clearly said it last night. Xue Baochai glared at him. What did I say? Song Qingshu looked at her curiously. Chapter 2181. Song Qingshu felt ashamed on the inside, but he refused to admit it. You can't take the nonsense of a drunk person seriously. The Crown Princess is so beautiful that any man would like her. Your brother Xuepan also likes her. Maybe I was influenced by her, but I couldn't help but speak nonsense when I was drunk. I'm so thirsty. Do you have water? This is the hangover soup. It's already cold. Xue Baochai picked up the bowl next to her and said, I don't care whether you and her are real or just talking nonsense. Anyway, this matter can't be leaked out. Now that you're in Xixia, you should be careful that the angry Xixia people will skin you alive. Song Qingshu drank the soup and said with a smile, Sister Bao, it seems that you still care about me. Who cares about you? Xue Baochai stood up with a straight face. She still had things to do after drinking the soup. Song Qingshu looked outside the dark window and was startled. I thought it was dawn, but it's still dark. Let me sleep a little longer. I drank too much last night and am too sleepy. Xue Baochai pulled his ear. You still have the nerve to say that? You know that the marriage contest is going to start today, but you still got drunk. Do you know that I have been waiting for you to come back last night to teach you how to deal with it? Song Qingshu couldn't help but murmur, Isn't this just a formality? Are you really willing to let me marry that Xixia princess? Bah! Xue Baochai's cheeks became hot. Who's unwilling? Although it's just a formality, it still represents the face of the imperial court. I specially went to see the list of the group selection. Not a single pair of princes from each country is placed in the same group, which proves that Xixia is also taking care of us. If we can't even advance to the next round against some small sects, it will be a disgrace to our great song. What if I advance to the next round and become the champion? What will you do? Song Qingshu looked at her with a faint smile. Xue Baochai was so angry that she laughed. Do you think I don't know your level? If we didn't grow up together, I wouldn't even look at you. How could a dignified princess like you? Saying this, she suddenly paused. She thought that even the beautiful and noble crown princess liked him, so it was hard to say that the Silver Stream princess also liked him. Was this guy really that charming? Was it because I was too familiar with him that I couldn't tell? Song Qingshu wanted to lie down on the bed again. It's not like you don't know that I don't like martial arts. Aren't you making things difficult for me? It's better to sleep more. No. Xue Baochai pulled him up again and tried to persuade him earnestly. Baoyu, something happened to your family. If you are eliminated in the group competition here, you will become a laughing stock in Lin and City. I don't want them to look at you like that. Seeing her concerned expression, Song Qingshu was slightly moved. He thought that this Miss Xue was really worried about Jia Baoyu. For a moment, he couldn't bear to hurt the little girl's heart. Okay, but you also know that I'm not interested in martial arts, so I may not be able to break through the group competition. Don't worry. I've found the information of your opponents today. They are not masters. I'll teach you a few moves. If you're clever, you should be able to handle it. Xue Baochai said. Isn't it a little late to sharpen a spear at the last moment? Of course, Song Qingshu didn't need to learn these skills from her, but he couldn't bear to reject her good intentions. These people are not masters, so some strange moves can play an unexpected role. And I remember that you seem to have learned some martial arts during the last time you disappeared, right? Xue Baochai looked at him curiously. 5200 Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. A little. That's good. It's good that you have the foundation. Otherwise, you don't know any martial art. I can't teach you to defeat them in such a short time. Xue Baochai finally let out a sigh of relief. When the two of them went out, they happened to wake up the servant who was dozing off outside the door. Miss Xue, let me take care of the young master since he's awake. You didn't sleep last night. Song Qingshu looked at Xue Baochai in surprise. The feelings of a young girl were always so easy to move. Xue Baochai rolled her eyes at the servant. No need. I still have something to teach your young master. You can go and prepare something like breakfast. Song Qingshu couldn't help but say, why don't you go and rest for a while? It's not too late to sleep after today. Xue Baochai directly began to demonstrate. Today you will have 3 opponents. One of them is the young escort leader of the Pegasus Escort Agency. His father, Ma Xingkong, is a little famous in Jianghu for his invincible boxing. But in fact, it's just an unworthy name. This set of boxing is terrible. Watch carefully. As she spoke, she demonstrated the so-called invincible boxing. At the same time, she explained in detail the flaws and countermeasures. She came from the Imperial City Department of the Southern Song Dynasty, so she was quite familiar with this kind of information in Jianghu. The other person is the young creditor of the Yinmachuan gang, Tao Zian. He is good at robbing and his martial arts is ordinary. If you want to deal with him, you should do this. The last person has the highest martial arts. He is the current leader of the Yellow River Gang, Qian Qingjian. Leader? Song Qingshu was startled. Xue Baochai explained, don't be scared by his title. In the past, the Yellow River Gang's 3-headed dragon Ho Tonghai and Dragon King of the Demonic Gate Sha Tongtian were masters in Jianghu. Later, they were captured by the Chuanjian sect and locked up for more than 10 years. Later, no one knew where they went. Sha Tongtian originally had 4 disciples, but most of them were killed by Lu Guanying of Cloud Manor. As a result, the Yellow River Gang was destroyed. Qian Qingjian was Sha Tongtian's youngest disciple and survived. Lu Guanying actually had such an awe-inspiring moment? Song Qingshu thought of the pretty boy who always looked like a little boy in front of him. He didn't expect that he would have such a side. In his mind, he couldn't help but think of Qing Yaojia's shy and boundless charm. Sigh, he really wasn't a good person. Lu Guanying's Cloud Manor is the head of the Taihu water bandits. Moreover, he is from the Shanin Lu family, so he is naturally an awe-inspiring figure in Jianghu. I heard that his wife is also a great beauty. The two of them are famous for being a perfect couple. Xue Baochai looked at him strangely and quickly returned to the main topic. Qian Qingjian's nickname is the Morning Family Axe. All his skills are in that axe. If you face him like this, Xue Baochai taught him in great detail. She even imagined all kinds of unexpected situations during the fight. Song Qingshu was deeply moved. Jia Baoyu was so lucky to have such a confidant. At first, Song Qingshu was a little impatient. However, halfway through, Xue Baochai noticed that his posture was wrong and personally corrected him. Feeling her youthful and soft body, Song Qingshu suddenly felt that this task wasn't so painful anymore. He deliberately made many mistakes so that Xue Baochai had no choice but to teach him step by step. All kinds of physical contact was inevitable. Chapter 2182. He told him to practice by himself and went back to his room. Song Qingshu wanted to go back to his room to rest, but he found Xue Baochai hiding in the room to observe him. He had no choice but to stay there and practice. Xue Pan woke up and saw him. He couldn't help but laugh. Isn't it too late to make a last-minute effort? Song Qingshu smiled bitterly. I have no choice. Shui Pan bullied people all day in Lin, and An was known as the local bully. He had a strong body and knew some martial arts passed down in his family. Although he wasn't a master, it wasn't difficult for him to advance to the next round. Who will your opponent be after advancing from the group stage? Shui Pan asked curiously as he hooked his arm around his back. I don't know. I don't care about that. Song Qingshu answered. He didn't need to choose an opponent. Shui Pan didn't understand. You're right. You might not even advance. It's useless to care so much. But you don't have to worry too much. There's someone even more unlucky than you. He winked at LV Shisheng. What's wrong with the LV brothers? Song Qingshu asked when he saw how excited Shui Pan was. Even if he advances to the next round, he'll face the top-seeded Mongolian Prince Zulwu. He'll be beaten up badly. He won't be able to advance to the top 32. His result will be about the same as yours. Shui Pan couldn't stop gloating. That's unlucky enough. Song Qingshu couldn't help laughing. But why don't they look unhappy at all? Who knows? Maybe they're just trying to be mysterious. Shui Pan snorted. What do you mean by the top-seeded? Song Qingshu suddenly remembered. You're talking about that. You don't like gambling, so it's normal that you don't know. Shui Pan explained to him like an experienced gambler. Although the exact bets will only be announced after the group matches, everyone already has their own judgment. Who doesn't know that the Xixia matchmaking is prepared for the Mongolian prince? If he doesn't win, who will? We're just here to accompany him. Not necessarily. Everyone else should have a chance. Song Qingshu said insincerely. In any case, I don't have a chance. At least I know this. My only hope is to fight my way into the top 32. Shui Pan was full of fighting spirit. Song Qingshu couldn't help but be surprised. I didn't expect you to still have the thought of bringing glory to the family. Your father and sister will be very pleased. What glory? Shui Pan had a blank look on his face. I just want to enter the theory exam and see for myself just how beautiful the princess is. Everyone outside is talking about her beauty to the skies. Song Qingshu. After washing up and eating breakfast, the group rushed to the martial arts arena. Because there were a lot of people in the preliminary martial arts competition, it was chosen to be held in a military camp on the outskirts of the city. After the group matches were over, it would be moved to the square in the city. Before the ceremony began, the elite troops of Xixia, the Iron Sparrowhawk, held a military parade. The Iron Sparrowhawk was a heavy armored cavalry of Xixia. They could be said to be the elite of the elite. The entire army was solemn, and their black armor was filled with an iron-blooded, murderous aura. After the parade, the army spread out in all directions, faintly guarding the safety of the martial arts arena and at the same time intimidating people who might cause trouble later. Among the Japanese ambassadors, Hidekitsu's face was gloomy. If the army of the Central Plains is so powerful, then I'm afraid foster father's plan to take over the Central Plains, Miyamoto Musashi said calmly. I've secretly investigated the capital of Xixia these days. These troops are only a small number of elite. The combat power of the rest of the troops is much weaker. That's good, that's good. Hidekitsu heaved a long sigh of relief. By the way, have the 10 soldiers' guardians been sent away? I've already sent them back overnight, Sasaki Kojiro answered. In my opinion, this is somewhat superfluous. The Koreans don't have any evidence, and the Xixia didn't come to question us. It's never wrong to be careful. Hidekitsu looked at the beautiful sisters of the Korean ambassadors not far away and was secretly annoyed. The cooked duck actually flew away. He must find a chance to get them. In the distance, Fu Junyu noticed his gaze, and a trace of disgust flashed in her eyes. I really want to dig out that bastard's eyeballs and stomp on the ground. A little impatience will spoil great plans. let's recover first. Fu Junyi didn't even look in that direction. Instead, she stared at the iron sparrowhawk in the field and sighed. The Central Plains is really a celestial empire. Even the weakest country, Xixia, has such a powerful army. At this time, the yellow-robed woman also sighed. No wonder our great Song and Xixia have been fighting for decades, but we haven't gained the slightest advantage. Their army is really tyrannical. Xue Baochai couldn't help but say, Sister Yang, why do you have to boost the morale of others and belittle your own? Our great Song's divine arm bow isn't inferior at all. At this time, Tubo, Zunger, Dali, and other forces also exclaimed in surprise. Obviously, the fighting strength of the Iron Sparrowhawk had made them quite frightened. Only Zulwu of the Mongolian Empire sneered. Only looks. Such an army is extremely clumsy. Compared to our Mongolian Empire's Chieshue army, they are just a living target. These days, the injuries on his face had mostly healed. With a little makeup, no one could see anything unusual at all. At this time, countless people cast curious gazes at this Mongolian prince. After all, he was one of the most powerful and honorable men in the world. Moreover, he was so young and handsome. Many women's eyes lit up, and they looked like they couldn't wait to marry him. Of course, Fang Yeyu, who was beside him, was extraordinarily handsome, and also attracted many people's attention. Seeing all of this, Xue Pan snorted sourly. What's so good about these pretty boys? Bao Yu, I'm not talking about you. Before Song Qingshu could answer, Lu Shixing sneered and said, if someone like him can be considered a pretty boy when he has conquered countless countries, then what about you? Xue Pan was immediately angered. Do you think that by sucking up to them like this, they will let you advance? Lu Shixing felt like his sore spot had been poked, and he immediately stood up in anger. Xue Pan stood up, cursing as he rolled up his sleeves, looking like he was about to fight. The yellow-clothed woman frowned and said coldly, it's all done. Don't embarrass yourself. Only then did the two of them return to their seat. Yelu Nansien was on the stage, announcing the rules and procedures of this marriage contest. She was tall and slender to begin with, and now, she stood at the center of the drill ground in her martial attire. She didn't panic in the slightest in front of the crowd. Her face was beautiful and noble, and her voice was gentle and pleasant to the ears. Even Zulwu narrowed his eyes and stared at the beautiful rose in the middle of the drill ground. Although his voice was soft, his tone was unquestionable. This woman will trouble me sooner or later. Fang Yeyu, who was standing to the side, smiled. After conquering the Western Xia, not to mention the Crown Prince's wife, even the Emperor's wife will be chosen by your Highness. Zulwu laughed. Let's marry that Princess Yinchuan first. Chapter 2183. After Yelu Nansien finished her speech, the group selection quickly began. Because of the limited space, it was impossible for so many people to compete at the same time, so they had to be arranged in order. Song Qingshu was placed at the back, while Xue Pan, the Lu brothers, and the others were placed in the middle. People like Su Liewu and Xiao Feng were placed at the front. Presumably, the host knew what everyone was thinking and wanted to see those celebrity contestants the most. As for the others, they were naturally placed at the back. Xue Pan and the others were indignant about this, but Song Qingshu didn't care. He would receive less attention at the back to prevent his identity from being exposed. Suddenly, a commotion came from the entrance of the drill ground, attracting everyone's attention. A young man in luxurious Mongolian clothes swaggered in, followed by a group of Mongolian warriors. His bearing was no less than Su Liewu's. When Song Qingshu saw that person's appearance, he couldn't help but be shocked. Why is he here? The person who had come was the heir of the Ruyang household, Zhao Min's older brother, Wang Baobao. Behind him were the Xianming elders and the experts of the Vajra sect. Song Qingshu carefully sized up everyone in his group and was disappointed to find that Zhao Min wasn't there. Wait! Wang Baobao's voice was loud and clear. The noisy drill ground immediately quieted down. Su Liaowu frowned and said, Wang Baobao, what are you doing here? Wang Baobao's group found a place and chased away the original people. He sat down and replied, I've heard that the Western Xia's Princess Yinchuan is beautiful and elegant, peerless. I admire her, so of course I've come to ask for her hand in marriage. Hearing his words, the crowd went into an uproar. They hadn't expected the Mongolians to fight over her. However, most of them were just here to watch the show and didn't mind the matter getting bigger. Su Liaowu's expression immediately darkened. You dare to compete with me? Wang Baobao said coldly. Didn't the Western Xia princess say that she wouldn't marry anyone but you? Since she didn't, why can't I pursue her? Everyone can rely on their own abilities. Su Liaowu glared at him, his tone full of anger. Good, very good. The yellow-clothed woman and Shui Baochai discussed animatedly. What's going on with this Wang Baobao? He's actually fighting with Su Liaowu over a woman? I heard that Temujin and Prince Ruyang don't get along, but I didn't expect it to be this serious. Song Qingshu was also frowning deeply. Wang Baobao had actually openly shed all pretense of cordiality with Suliwu. The conflict between the Ruyang Palace and Temujin's faction could be imagined. Although the Prince of Ruyang and his son were both famed generals on the battlefield, with many highly skilled fighters under their command and 100,000 soldiers under their command, Temujin was still the ruler of Mongolia. He and his descendants controlled 3/4 of the Mongolian military power. The future of the Ruyang Palace was not very promising. Thinking of this, he could not help but worry about Zhao Min. She had also run back when she sensed that the Ruyang mansion was in danger. He did not know if she was safe or not. Seeing his prince so angry, the little magician Fang Yeyu rolled his eyes and came up with a plan. King of Hunan, the princes and grandsons of the other countries participating in the Western Xia's marriage contest have already arrived early. Now, even the duels have been arranged. Isn't it a bit too late for you to come now? But don't worry, you can cheer for our prince. After our prince marries the princess, you will definitely see with your own eyes how peerless a beauty is. Although Wang Baobao was the crown prince of Ruyang, he had led troops to conquer the north and the south for many years and had made countless contributions. Li Qinglu, who was hiding in the dark and observing, heard his frivolous tone and cursed in her heart, Damned pretty boy, don't fall into my hands or else I'll make you pay. Chapter 110. Literature. Wang Baobao laughed loudly. What's so difficult about that? With a wave of his hand, the warriors under his command ferociously went to find some of the contestants who were about to participate in the contest. No one knew what they said, but those people all gave up and were willing to give up their spots. Fang Yeyu couldn't help but look at Yelu Nanxian on the stage. Crown Princess, they are cheating so openly. Are you not going to do anything about it? Before Yelu Nanxian could open her mouth, Wang Baobao answered first, What a joke. They are willing to give up their spots. What can you do about it? Moreover, in today's era of great competition, only a powerful man can protect his woman. As far as the princess of the Xixia country is concerned, the stronger the participants are, the better. Do you really think that no one will compete with your lord if all the participants are foreigners? Do you really think that no one will compete with your lord? Fang Yeyu didn't expect that he would be tricked by his words. Su Liaowu raised his hand and stopped him from continuing. He opened his mouth and said, Wang Baobao, since you want to lose, I will fulfill your wish. Wang Baobao smiled slightly. With me here, are you all here to fight for the second place? As soon as he said this, there was a burst of cursing in the drill ground. Many people who originally hated Su Liaowu were now enraged by his arrogance. Hearing the people around him also cursing, Song Qingshu couldn't help but smile. This brother-in-law of his was really a wonderful person. After this interlude, the group competition officially started. Su Liaowu was the first to fight. Perhaps he was angry, but he didn't show any mercy. The 3 people in his group were seriously injured by him the moment they met. Seeing this, everyone sucked in a breath of cold air. Many people were still imagining that Su Liaowu was only relying on his status as the Mongolian emperor's grandson, and that he might not be very powerful. In the end, they didn't expect his martial arts to be so powerful. How could the others compete with him? Song Qinshu had fought with him before, so he was very clear about his level. Su Liaowu's martial arts could barely be said to have reached the Grandmaster realm. Most of the people in the drill ground were not his match, but there were a few whose martial arts were clearly higher than his. For example, Xiao Feng and Xuzhu. He didn't know how he was going to deal with them, seeing that Xuzhu's hair had grown out quite a bit. Song Qingshu's expression was extremely strange. They were all geniuses. The other contestants went up one after another. Experts like Xiao Feng, Xuzhu, and Yelu Qi naturally quickly defeated their opponent. The other princes also advanced one after another. Because they had been deliberately taken care of in the beginning, and because many of their opponents were only slightly famous in their regions, they were much weaker compared to these princes. Of course, there were also some who failed miserably. For example, the princes from the southern Song side, except for the Lu brothers and Xuepan, had all been eliminated in the group competition. Even Xuepan had been beaten black and blue by his opponents, but in any case, he had advanced in the end. Comparatively speaking, the Lu brothers were much better off. They had fought in places like Xiangyang all year round, so they could be said to be proficient in both the pen and the sword. It wasn't difficult for them to advance. After returning, they often mocked and ridiculed Xuepan, making him cry out in anger. In the end, only Song Qinshu was left. Before he went up, Xue Baochai quietly told him, "Just remember what I taught you before. Don't be nervous." Song Qinshu nodded. "Don't worry, I will definitely advance. Aren't you afraid that the wind will cut your tongue?" No one knew who said this, but everyone looked at him as if he was a joke. Even the yellow-robed woman didn't think he could advance. Chapter 2184. A young man jumped onto the ring and showed off a few powerful punches. Then he cupped his hands and introduced himself to the audience. "I am Ma Xiaokong, the Invincible Fist." He said this with a guilty conscience. The Invincible Fist was his father's name. When he found that no one questioned him, he was relieved. At the same time, he despised the ignorance of the others. "I am Tao Zian from the Drinking Horse River." Another man surrounded by furs walked onto the ring. He held a large golden ring knife in his hand and stabbed it into the ground. Even from a distance, people could feel the bloodthirsty aura from him. He was indeed a master of daily robberies. "I am the leader of the Yellow River Gang, Qian Qingjian." A burly man carried a giant axe. His exaggerated appearance instantly attracted everyone's attention. Each of these people was more majestic than the last. Song Qinshu walked up the stairs in an orderly manner, causing a burst of boos. "I am Jia Baoyu. Nice to meet you, masters." He smiled and cupped his hands to the 3 people. Embroidered pillow. Those people casually glanced at him and saw that his footsteps were weak. Sure enough, he was the same as the rumored spoiled brat who only knew how to mingle with women and didn't know any martial arts. Naturally, they didn't take him seriously and turned their attention to the others. Ma Xiaokong was the weakest and Qian Qingjian was the strongest. The 3 people quickly made a judgment. Tao Zian and Ma Xiaokong looked at each other and tacitly attacked Qian Qingjian. They wanted to get rid of the strongest one first. Tao Zian thought that after Qian Qingjian was defeated, he would be the strongest and it would be easy for him to deal with Ma Xiaoan. Ma Xiaoan also had the same idea. He was ready to see Tao Zian and Qian Qingjian hurt each other and then reap the benefit. As for Song Qinshu, he was automatically ignored by them. After the 3 people decided the winner, any one of them could defeat him with one hand. Song Qingshu was a little worried about what to do later. He could rely on pretending to be stupid and secretly attack them, but under the eyes of the crowd and the real masters, it was easy for them to see that something was wrong. Who knew that these three clowns would actually fight among themselves? This way, he could save himself some trouble and was happy to watch the show from the side. Originally, he wanted to shout a few words to cheer for them, but he was worried that he would accidentally attract the ridicule of a few people. In the end, he decided to quietly watch the show from the sidelines. In the eyes of the others, he was like a quail that stayed where he was, as if he was a lamb waiting to be slaughtered for the final winner. The crowd couldn't help but burst into laughter. Below the stage, the Liu brothers could not help but laugh. "He's a disgrace to our great song." Shui Pan cursed angrily. "What do you know? You'll only be fighting one person in the end. This is called strategy, do you understand?" LV Sherdao looked him up and down a few times. "I almost forgot that our young master Shui almost didn't make it to the next round just now." "That's right. For people like you who only rely on your family background, you really need to talk about strategy. For people like us, we just need to crush our opponents in the group stage with brute force." "You!" Shui Pan was so angry that his teeth itched, but the bruise on his face was still there. For a moment, he really didn't know how to refute. On the other hand, Shui Baochai didn't pay attention to their quarrel at all. Instead, she focused all her attention on the stage. She kept analyzing in her heart, "This is better than I expected. Even if the winner is determined among the three later, the winner will definitely be injured, and it will be easier to deal with him. Of course, this will only increase the probability by a little bit. I hope that Baoyu will remember what I taught him when he fights later." "Why? Do you think he has a chance to win?" The yellow-shirt girl noticed her clenched hands and couldn't help but ask. Shui Baochai sighed. "Not much hope. After all, it was too hasty to sharpen a spear at the last minute. One should know that the situation in a martial arts competition could change in an instant. How could it be so ideal to follow the expected moves?" The yellow-shirt girl hesitated for a moment, but still advised, "You should know what's going on with the Jia family. You'd better get out of it as soon as possible. Even if you're willing, I'm sure your father won't agree to the relationship between the two of you in the future." Shui Baochai bit her lips tightly. Her face was a little pale, and she didn't speak for a long time. At this time, the competition on the stage had come to an end. In theory, Ma Xiaokong and Tao Zi'an's martial arts combined were stronger than Qian Qingjian's. However, both of them had ulterior motives. They couldn't wait for the other to fight in front of them and save their strength to reap the benefits. As a result, Qian Qingjian found the right opportunity. At the risk of getting injured, he finally defeated the two of them with one axe strike. 123 Literature Network. However, he didn't feel good either. After fighting with the two of them for so long, his inner force was almost exhausted. The other two's counterattacks before they fell also left deep wounds on him, and blood kept flowing. Of course, even with so many unfavorable factors, he didn't think it would be a problem to deal with Jia Baoyu. Looking at the other party carrying an axe and walking over with a murderous look, Song Qingshu hurriedly stopped him. "Wait. It's too late to beg for mercy now." Qian Qingjian grinned and raised his axe, ready to strike. 1,000 taels. Song Qingshu took out a banknote from his pocket. Qian Qingjian forcibly stopped the axe and stared at the banknote in his hand. "What do you mean?" he asked in a low voice. "I'll give you 1,000 taels if you admit defeat and leave. How about that?" Song Qingshu replied with a serious expression. There was an uproar in the drill ground. There was actually such a thing? Shui Pan was dumbfounded. "There's such a thing?" The yellow-clothed girl couldn't help but laugh. She looked at Shui Baochai beside her. "Is this the method you taught him today? It's quite original." No. Shui Baochai denied guiltily. Her face was completely red. She thought to herself, this smelly Baoyu is really embarrassing me. Qian Qingjian was furious. You want to bribe me with a mere 1,000 taels? You've found the wrong person. As he spoke, he raised his axe again. At this time, Song Qingshu took out a few more banknote. 5,000 taels. Qian Qingjian was stunned. Then, he became flustered and exasperated. I'm not that kind of person. 10,000 taels. Song Qingshu took out a stack of banknotes again. Qian Qingjian didn't say anything this time. Instead, he revealed a conflicted expression on his face. Song Qingshu seized the opportunity and said, Your Yellow River gang helps people unload and transport goods on the Yellow River all day long. How much money can you make? If you divide it among your subordinates, how much will you have left as a gang leader? Qian Qingjian wanted to refute, but he couldn't find the words to do so. After all, the entire Yellow River gang didn't even have this much money in a year, let alone how much he could get. Song Qingshu continued, Even if you win this time, what benefits will you get? Don't tell me that you really think you can marry the Xixia princess and become the emperor's son-in-law? As he spoke, he pointed at Su Liewu and the others in the distance. Do you think you're better than the 2 Mongolian princes, or King Shao of the southern courtyard of Liao? Or are you an expert that the Shaolin Temple has meticulously trained? Qian Qingjian's face alternated between green and white, and his breathing became heavy. These words finally became the last straw that broke his back. He grabbed the banknotes and said, I'm not as skilled as you. I admit defeat. After he finished speaking, he left without looking back. Only Song Qingshu was left in the same place, full of pride and satisfaction. It was true that those princes were jealous of each other in the brothel, and they would throw 100,000 taels of silver at every turn. But now, they only needed 10,000 taels to bribe a low-level gang leader. The gap between the rich and the poor was really big. Despicable and shameless. Despicable and shameless. Shady. Chapter 2185. Song Qingshu remained unmoved. He cupped his hands and greeted everyone with a proud expression, Thank you for letting me win. Some people immediately protested. Many looked at Yelu Nanxian. The contestant is openly bribing, are you not going to do anything about it? Yelu Nanxian held back her laughter and answered, When the princess chooses a son-in-law, she wants her future son-in-law to have the strongest overall strength. Whether it is wealth or intelligence, it is a type of strength. This is understandable. Everyone was startled, but gradually felt that what she said made sense. After all, this wasn't Jianghu. The people of Jianghu could rely on martial arts to find a husband, but the princess still had to look at other strength. When Song Qingshu returned to his group, Xue Pan came over and hugged his arm. Baoyu, you're really something. You actually won in such a way. What's there to be proud of? You've lost the face of our great song. The Liu brothers mocked him. Those who didn't make it to the next round agreed, while regretting that they didn't think of this method. These people were all from prestigious clans of the southern Song dynasty and knew that the Jia clan was doomed. They naturally wouldn't show any mercy to Jia Baoyu. TSK, the Western Xia, has already acknowledged him. What are you guys so jealous for? Xue Pan was angry and started arguing with those people again. Song Qingshu shook his head. He couldn't be bothered to argue with those people. Xue Baochai came to his side and pouted. If I knew you had a way to advance, I wouldn't have wasted my effort. It was completely unnecessary. Song Qingshu hurriedly said, Of course not. My method was just a trick. What if they don't agree? At that time, we'll still have to talk with our fists. It is because of your careful teaching that I have the confidence to stand there. Otherwise, I'm afraid I wouldn't even dare to go on stage. Hearing this, Xue Baochai's expression softened. She then said worriedly, Now that your group has advanced, you've won glory for your clan. You don't have to force yourself in the following matches. If you have to admit defeat, just admit defeat. Don't get hurt by your opponent. Feeling the concern in her voice, Song Qingshu's heart warmed. Sister Bao, don't worry. Miss Shui, aren't you being too pessimistic about your lover? I think he'll be able to go far. Do you want to take a gamble? At this time, a chuckle could be heard. It turned out that Wanyan Zhongjie was walking over, waving his fan. Wanyan Zhongjie had always been handsome, but now his hands were even wider than the ribs of his fan, attracting the attention of both men and women. Seeing that it was her, Shui Baochai felt annoyed in her heart. If I remember correctly, if Baoyu is lucky enough to advance to the next stage, he will also encounter the young commandery princess. If the young commandery princess believes that Baoyu can go far, doesn't she admit that she will lose to him? Wanyan Zhongjie represented the Jin kingdom in this matchmaking contest. Although he was disguised as a woman, there were many handsome men in the world. Ordinary people didn't know the truth about him, and even if they did, they wouldn't want to expose him and offend the Jin kingdom over such a small matter. In any case, if he really made it to the end, it wouldn't be too late to expose him then. If I were to meet him, given our friendship, I would immediately admit defeat. Wanyan Zhongjie looked at Song Qingshu with a gentle smile in his eyes. Shui Baochai's heart skipped a beat. Could it be that their friendship was that good? Wanyan Zhongjie understood the gravity of the situation. Under the watchful eyes of the crowd, she didn't do anything excessive. She cast a few ambiguous glances at Song Qingshu before leaving with a smile on her face. Song Qingshu felt a headache coming on. Shui Pan couldn't help but run over and bump his shoulder. Brother, you're not bad. When did you manage to get your hands on that beautiful young commandery princess from the Jin kingdom? Shut up. Shui Baochai felt annoyed and glared at him. At this moment, a mysterious fragrance wafted over. When Shui Pan smelled it, he excitedly turned his head and exclaimed, "Dual cultivation princess." Gu Zixian politely nodded towards him, and then looked at Song Qingshu with a smile. Her fair and flawless face flashed with a trace of bashfulness as she said, "Congratulations." "Thank you, princess." When Song Qingshu thought of her gentleness and charm that night, he couldn't help but feel a fire burn in his heart. The two of them looked at each other. They were probably thinking of the same thing. Gu Zixian's face became even more beautiful. On the surface, the two of them weren't that close. Gu Zixian was worried that she would make him unhappy if she stayed too long, so she nodded and left with her companion. Shui Pan looked at her moving figure and opened his mouth. He wanted to say something, but he didn't know what to say. He only came back to his senses when she disappeared. He angrily grabbed Song Qingshu's neck and said, "Brat, you're thinking about what's in the pot when you're eating from the bowl. It's fine if you have my sister, it's fine if you seduce the young commandery princess from the Jin kingdom. Now, you're not even letting go of the dual cultivation princess." Shui Baochai was furious. "What are you talking about? Who's his?" While they were fooling around, a cold snort came from the side. They turned around and saw the young city lord of Peerless City, Duguming, looking at Song Qingshu with a gloomy expression. "Surname Jia, you're good. I'll be your opponent in the next round. Let's see how you're going to bribe me then." After saying that, he angrily chased after his fiancée. Song Qingshu was stunned. Although Duguming wasn't a top-notch expert, he was a true disciple of Peerless City. He was definitely an expert among the young nobles. How did he meet such a strong opponent so soon? It didn't make sense. His heart skipped a beat, looking in Yelu Nanxian's direction. Beside her was a young girl dressed like a palace maid, obviously Li Qinglu in disguise. The two girls were whispering something to each other, but as if sensing his gaze, they both turned around, revealing a faint smile on their faces. "Who told you to hang around with women all day long?" Seeing Li Qinglu's smug expression, Song Qingshu understood what she was thinking. He also understood why Yelu Nanxian had mentioned that Li Qinglu would give him a surprise. So this was what she was referring to. This girl is really... Song Qingshu shook his head, but he couldn't get angry. On the bright side, at least she didn't arrange for him to go up against Su Liaowu and Xiao Feng the moment he arrived. Who told you to fool around? His fiancée also went to flirt with him. Now he's angry. At this time, Xue Baochai couldn't help but pinch his ear. However, Xue Pan hurriedly said, "The dual cultivator princess isn't his fiancée. I've specially asked around. They only have the tradition of joining hands by marriage. They haven't officially agreed to the marriage." Xue Baochai couldn't help but roll her eyes. Her foolish brother was really a fool. The dual cultivator princess clearly didn't care about him, but he still spoke up for her. "If I can't beat him, I'll just surrender." Song Qingshu's expression was relaxed. "I'm afraid he won't let you go so easily." The yellow-robed girl also walked over. "Furthermore, if you get eliminated early, wouldn't you be letting down the Jin Kingdom's princess's good intentions?" Xue Baochai couldn't help but laugh. "Big Sister Yang, do you really think that the Jin Kingdom's princess will let him go?" Chapter 2186. In addition to Wanyan Zhongjie, there were also many women disguised as men, such as Madame Zhen, who pretended to be Prince Horazm, and the yellow-robed woman. These women all had their own purposes. The people from other countries either didn't see through them or didn't expose them for various reasons. Therefore, no one objected even though the yellow-robed woman and her companions passed the first round. Before Song Qingshu had time to answer, Xue Baochai said with a smile, "Sister Yang, you think too highly of him. It's already a fluke that he passed the first round. What's more, you're representing the great Song this time. You'd better defeat the princes and childs of other countries and win the first round. Then you can marry the princess of Xixia." The Xixia people have fought many wars with the great Song over the past decade. You don't know how many loyal and brave soldiers have died in the northwest. You can marry their princess and vent your anger. Song Qingshu clicked his tongue when he heard this, thinking that these women were really two-faced. The yellow-robed woman shook her head and said, "There are many masters in the competition this time, such as Xiao Feng from Liao, Xiuzhu from Shaolin, Zhuang Juxian, the new Grand Master of the Beggar Gang from Hebei, and even Zulwu and Wang Baobao from Mongolia. I'm not sure if I can win." Song Qingshu's heart skipped a beat. There were too many matches in the preliminary selection, and he didn't pay attention to them all. That was why he heard the news about Zhuang Juxian. Others might not know who he was, but he knew. He didn't expect that Yu Tanji would become the Grand Master of the Beggar Gang. Fortunately, Z didn't come this time, or he would go crazy if he saw her. As for the yellow-robed woman's fear of Wang Baobao, Song Qingshu was not surprised. In the past, Wang Baobao could only be regarded as agile, but this time Wang Baobao seemed to have some adventures, and his kung fu was very powerful. He could vaguely see the way of the Devil School. The Devil School's kung fu was always effective and powerful. Besides, it was difficult to create such a top master in a short time. Song Qingshu became more and more curious about Wang Baobao. Plus, he was worried about Zhao Min's recent situation, so he slipped out of the Southern Song Dynasty's celebration party in the evening. The Xixia officials had already prepared a guest house for Wang Baobao and his party, so it was easy for them to find it. Song Qingshu sneaked in under the cover of the night. Now that he thought about it, he realized that he often did this kind of thing. Song Qingshu couldn't help but grumble that he was really born to steal women. However, there was no incense or jade in Wang Baobao's residence, only a group of stinky men. Song Qingshu avoided the guards along the way and arrived at a big tree near Wang Baobao's room. For a moment, he was hesitant about whether he should show himself and meet Wang Baobao. Speaking of which, Wang Baobao was his elder brother-in-law, so they could be considered family. However, Wang Baobao and Zhao Min had privately pledged to marry each other, and their relationship had yet to be officially recognized by the Ruyang mansion. Moreover, His identity had always been kept a secret. Apart from Xiao Feng and Yeluqi, no one else knew that he had also come to the Western Xia. Wang Baobao had many subordinates under his command, so it was very likely that they would leak the news. While Ao Xiao was hesitating, he suddenly sensed something. He looked to the other side. Someone was coming. His footsteps were light and his kung fu was good. Not long after, the guards in the guesthouse also noticed them. Many figures flew out and surrounded them. Wang Baobao also came out of his room. Xianming elders were guarding him. There were also a dozen foreign monks in orange robes. They were masters from Shaolin Temple in the western regions. Another group of master archers were scattered everywhere. As long as there was the slightest movement, they would shoot the enemies into hedgehogs. Your Excellency, what brings you here in the middle of the night? Wang Baobao looked somewhere and shouted coldly. He, the king of Hunan really has many masters under his command. I was discovered so quickly. A young man jumped down from the tree. He was fair-skinned and extremely handsome. His figure was smaller and more slender than a normal man. People couldn't take their eyes off him. Book 6. It's her. Even though the other party was dressed like a man, Song Qinshu still recognized her. The two of them had fought before. She was the cult master of Heavenly Fate cult, Dan Yuru. Cult Master Dan, isn't this what I, Brother Ollie, taught you to sneak around and pay me a visit? Wang Baobao snorted coldly. Song Qinshu was shocked. He didn't expect Wang Baobao to know her as well. It seemed like his relationship with the people of the demon cult was not ordinary. King of Hunan, please don't misunderstand. I came here with good intentions. Even though Dan Yuru was dressed like a man, her every movement still exuded a natural charm. Wang Baobao's subordinates trembled when they saw her, especially the lecherous Lu Zhanke. His saliva almost dripped onto the ground. Good intentions? Wang Baobao sneered. Take her down first. Got it. Lu Zhanke was already impatient. When he received the order, he rushed out with a whoosh. He Biweng was worried that something would happen to him, so he rushed out as well. Both of you are seniors of virtue and prestige. If you work together to deal with a weak woman like me, wouldn't it be beneath your dignity? Dan Yuru spoke in a pitiful tone. Her casual words caused the two of them to hesitate. Even the others looked at the Xianming elders with slight disdain. Wang Baobao shouted coldly, "Don't fall for this witch's charm art." His voice was like the roar of a Buddhist lion. It had a deafening power that instantly brought everyone back to their senses. The Xianming elders realized that they had fallen for her trick. Their faces heated up, and they attacked her even more viciously just to regain their dignity. Seniors, you're angry. Dan Yuru raised her pure white wrists, and a pair of jade rings appeared in her hands. They swam around the room like wild bees and butterflies fighting for nectar. At the same time, they let out pleasant sounds that flickered in and out of sight, sometimes far, sometimes near. They sounded like a lover whispering into one's ear, but also like a young girl grumbling coquettishly. He Biweng fared a little better, but Lu Zhanke's heart was full of lust. His face flushed because of these obscene sounds, and he couldn't help but lose his composure. He Biweng had to step in to protect him from time to time, making the two of them feel as if they were being played by the other party. Song Qinshu could clearly see that Dan Yuru's power was not as good as the Xianming elders when they worked together. However, her emerald green sleeves were so powerful that she could bring out 120% of the demonic sound-disturbing soul great technique's power. That was why the Xianming elders were in a disadvantageous position. Get back here. Don't make a fool of yourself again. Wang Baobao knitted his brows. It was obvious that he was very dissatisfied with the two's performance. The Xianming elders retreated resentfully. Dan Yuru didn't pursue them. She put away the emerald green sleeves and looked at Wang Baobao with a smile. Your Royal Highness, in fact, I came here this time to help your Royal Highness marry the Princess of Xixia. Wang Baobao had a proud expression on his face. Do I need the help of a woman like you? Chapter 2187. Wang Baobao frowned slightly, but he still said, Fang Yiyu and Ing Fei want to deal with me? They're overestimating themselves. Dan Yuru pursed her lips and smiled. With your Highness's martial arts, of course you're not afraid of Fang Yiyu and Ing Fei, but Su Liaowu can use them to exhaust you in advance. At the same time, he can also find out about your Highness's martial arts in advance. But your Highness knows nothing about him. This will be very disadvantageous to you in battle. Your Highness is a famous general on the battlefield. I don't need to say more about the importance of knowing yourself and your enemy, right? That's interesting, Wang Baobao said curiously. Then how do you plan on helping me? Dan Yuru took out a token and gestured. I'm also participating in this martial arts competition for a spouse. Although my martial arts aren't very high, they're passable. So, like Fang Yiyu and Ing Fei, I can help your Highness sweep away your opponents in advance. I might even be able to help you eliminate Su Liaowu. Wang Baobao shook his head. With Su Liaowu's martial arts, you won't be able to eliminate him. Dan Yuru smiled sweetly. It's not like there's no chance at all. You can always try. Why are you helping me? Wang Baobao looked deeply at her and waved his hand, indicating for the others to leave, leaving only the Xianming elders and a few others. After they left, Wang Baobao asked, Did Brother Ali send you? It's easier to talk to smart people, Dan Yuru replied. The king of Hunan should know that our king and Kublai have always been fighting for the right to inherit the Khan's throne. Zulwu controls the power of the Western countries and has a great influence on who the Khan's throne belongs to. But he is also close to Kublai, so our king naturally needs to find a helper. Song Qinshu, who was hiding in the tree, secretly clicked his tongue when he heard this. He hadn't expected the internal strife in Mongolia to be this intense. However, he couldn't help but feel happy when he heard this. The more intense the internal strife in Mongolia, the more advantageous it would be for him. His only worry was whether Zhao Min would be affected. Wang Baobao was silent for a moment before saying, You should know the current situation of the Ruyang household. I'm afraid it's not very wise to cooperate with us right now. This is the will of our prince. As for what he is thinking, we, as subordinates, do not dare to speculate. However, in my humble opinion, the Ruyang mansion has many soldiers and generals under its command. You, father and daughter, are both adept in both literature and martial arts. No matter how I look at it, you three are a good ally. The corners of Dan Yuru's lips curled up slightly. Although she was not smiling, there was a natural smile on her face. She looked incomparably sweet, like a spring breeze. Since that's the case, please thank your prince for me. Wang Baobao heaved a sigh of relief. Currently, the Ruyang manor was plagued with internal and external threat. Obtaining Brother Alabuge's support could be considered to have more advantages than disadvantages. By the way, Dan Yuru was about to leave when she suddenly thought of something. Turning around, she said, Prince, I have a piece of news. Not long ago, the Dong Ing people found Su Liaowu. Wang Baobao was stunned. What does that have to do with us? Of course it has something to do with us, Dan Yuru explained. Previously, the matter of the Dong Ing people killing the envoy of Goryeo was exposed. They decided to go all out and completely kill the remaining people of the Goryeo envoy. However, this is the territory of Western Xia after all. They have some scruples, so they found Su Liaowu and asked him to help. Song Qinshu, who was on the tree, was shocked. The Dong Ing people were actually this ruthless? It seemed that the incident of the Fu sisters bumping into them previously had made them a little suspicious. They were worried that they would incite the forces of other countries to deal with them, so they took the initiative to gain the upper hand. However, he did not know if Su Liaowu had agreed or not. Also, why was Dan Yuru so clear about the information from that side? Could it be that there were spies from the Heavens Mandate sect under Su Liaowu? Rotten Book Network, Su Liaowu will help them? Wang Baobao obviously did not believe that Su Liaowu would be so easy to deal with. Dan Yuru answered, Su Liaowu agreed for 2 reasons. First, this will cause Goryeo and Mongolia to become enemies. Su Liaowu's territory is very far away from Goryeo, so he does not care at all. However, the territory of the Ruyang Mansion is close to Goryeo, so Goryeo will first take revenge on you. Also, Su Liaowu will help them kill the Goryeo people, and the Dong-ing people will help Su Liaowu to kill you, Prince. Wang Baobao was instantly furious. Everyone really thinks that I am a soft persimmon. Even the Dong-ing people want to deal with me? Dan Yuru said seriously, Prince, you must not be careless. The 2 swordsmen from the Dong-ing people are called Miyamoto Musashi and Sasaki Kojiro. Their martial arts are very strong, and even I am worried that I may not be a match for them. If Prince is careless, you may fail miserably. At this time, Song Qingshu had no time to listen to their conversation anymore. Instead, he rushed to the Goryeo guest house anxiously. It was not that he did not guard against the Dong-ing people before, but the Goryeo guest house was heavily guarded. In addition, there were Xixia soldiers patrolling nearby, so the Dong-ing people did not have the ability to do anything. Who knew that they would ask for Su Liaowu's help? He rushed all the way to the Goryeo guest house. From afar, he saw a sea of fire. When he went in, he found that the people of the Goryeo envoy group were all lying in a pool of blood. The only thing worth rejoicing was that he did not see the corpses of the Fu sisters, and there seemed to be no corpse of the Crown Prince of Goryeo. Faintly, he heard many people rushing over from afar. Song Qingshu quietly left the guest house and climbed up to a tall building. He had a panoramic view of the entire Xingqing prefecture and the possible whereabouts of the Fu sisters. At this time, several streets away, a group of mysterious people in black cloaks were carrying the Fu sisters, the Crown Prince of Goryeo, and the others. There happened to be a quiet restaurant nearby, and 3 people were drinking on the upper floor. We haven't seen each other for a long time. Big Brother's capacity for liquor is getting more and more unfathomable. A handsome man in a green robe smiled and held a bowl of wine, looking at the burly man in front of him. The burly man laughed. I'm not afraid of second brother laughing at me. A few days ago I was drunk by someone. The young man in the green robe was shocked. Who can drink so much? There is actually someone in this world who can drink more than Big Brother? Another young man beside him laughed, but that person is not much better. It should be a draw. The 3 of them were naturally Duan Yu, Xiao Feng, and Yelu Qi. Duan Yu and Xiao Feng had not seen each other for a long time, so they naturally drank together. Yelu Qi and Xiao Feng had originally come together, so they came to drink together. Duan Yu was anxious. Who is that person? His gaze had already noticed the group of people in black passing by downstairs, and noticed that they had 2 beautiful girls tied up. Immediately, his tender feelings for the fairer sex were triggered, and he jumped down from downstairs to block the men in black. Who are you people? How dare you kidnap these girls? The leader of the men in black was completely shrunk in his cloak, so his face could not be seen clearly. When he saw that Duan Yu was blocking his way, he shouted, "Get lost!" His tone was extremely strange, and it was obvious that he was not from the Central Plains. As soon as he finished speaking, he had already appeared in front of Duan Yu, and pressed his palm against the vital acupoint on Duan Yu's chest. Although Duan Yu was skilled in martial arts, he had no foundation in martial arts, and his reflexes were too poor. He did not expect that the other party would attack him so quickly and with such a strange movement technique. He actually appeared in front of Duan Yu in an instant. Chapter 2188. Xiao Feng pushed Duan Yu away, and in the blink of an eye, he had exchanged a few blows with the man in black. He couldn't help but be surprised, borrowing strength to fight strength, stars transposition? You're from Murong clan? But he immediately denied this guess. He had fought with the Murong father and son, and Murong Fu's stars transposition didn't have this kind of skill. Even Murong Bo was slightly weaker, and his opponent's kung fu was slightly different from stars transposition. 18 dragons subduing palms? The two clashed, and the man in black retreated a few steps. He was also surprised. Hearing Xiao Feng's words, the man in black snorted, "Stars transposition is nothing." At this time, a man and a woman came to his side. "Great Elder, there's a fire over there, and many people are rushing over here. What should we do?" Hearing how they called him, Xiao Feng's mind flashed. That was heaven and earth great shift, but Zhang Jiaozhu of the Ming dynasty is younger than you. Great Elder, are you from the Persian Ming dynasty? The man in black was naturally the old man, Huashan. Hearing this, he frowned and said in a deep voice, "We have no grudge against each other, why don't we part ways here?" At this time, Duan Yu jumped out and pointed at the captured Fu sisters. "No, you have to leave them here." Xiao Feng also didn't want to sit and do nothing. "That's right, leave them here, and I won't make things difficult for you." Humph, shameless boasting. A trace of killing intent flashed in Huashan's eyes, and his whole body had already turned into a black shadow, pouncing towards Xiao Feng. "Finish this quickly." Yes. The men in black also attacked Xiao Feng, and it was obvious that they were all very skilled. Yeluqi was shocked. Although he knew that the king of the southern yard was very skilled, the leader of the men in black just now was also unfathomable. The two of them were probably on par. Now that the men in black had so many helpers, how could Xiao Feng defeat them? Therefore, he hastily rushed forward and blocked the group of men in black. His master was Zhou Badong, so it could be said that he had learned the essence of the Chuanjian sect's martial arts. In addition, he had received Xiao Feng's guidance these past few years, so he had also dabbled in the beggar clan's martial arts. Yo, these two youngsters are really handsome. That Xiao Feng is also filled with manly charm. One of the black-clothed people had an exquisite figure. It was obvious that she was a woman. As she fought, she laughed delicately. "Stop acting coquettishly. Hurry up and deal with them. If you ruin Master's plans, you and I won't be able to bear the consequences." Another black-clothed man on the side said angrily. Although his face was covered, one could see that his hair was completely white. However, the skin that was exposed did not seem old at all. If Song Qinshu were here, he would have recognized them as Hua Jieyu and Lu Shaoji, two masters of the Devil Palace. These men in black were all experts. Yeluqi was able to hold them off for a while, but he was soon in danger. Fortunately, Duan Yu finally reacted. "I need to hurt my friend." As he spoke, sword chi shot out at the same time, causing the black-robed men to be battered and exhausted. Many of them were injured in a single exchange. 6 Meridian's magical sword? In the short exchange, Huashan could tell that although Duan Yu's kung fu was amazing, he did not know how to use it. His experience in fighting was too shallow. He wanted to take the opportunity to injure Duan Yu. However, Xiao Feng's kung fu was extremely high. No matter how unpredictable his movements were, Xiao Feng could always cover him with the 18 dragon subduing palms. He had no choice but to fight with 120% of his concentration. Fortunately, Hua Jiyu also reacted and attacked Duan Yu from both sides. Hua Jiyu said with a smile, "I thought you were just an ordinary spearhead. I didn't expect you to be so capable." Duan Yu was stunned. "You're so old. Why are you calling me little brother?" Hua Jiyu said with a smile, "Listen to my voice and look at my skin. Which part of me is big?" "Oh no, I mean my breasts are quite big." Although she was not young, she had preserved her beauty by harvesting yin energy to nourish yang energy. Her skin was even more delicate than some young girls. Long Duan Yu said seriously, "Your companion's hair is all white. I think you're about the same age." You could even be my grandmother." He was an idiot, so he naturally said what he thought. He did not mean to hurt Hua Jiu. But because of this, his words were even more lethal. "Brat, I'm going to suck you dry today." Hua Jiu was so angry that her lungs were about to explode. She would have held back a little because of his good looks. But now, every move of hers was fatal. Duan Yu was startled and hurriedly used the wave-like subtle steps to dodge, causing the two's determined joint attack to miss. At the same time, he used the six-pulse divine sword to counterattack. Even if his sword chi was occasionally not effective, with the wave-like subtle steps, it was enough to prevent them from hitting him and put him in an invincible position. Just like that, Xiao Feng led the strongest away. Yelu Qi took the damage in front of him. Duan Yu kite and shot arrows at the back. For a moment, Huashan and the others were helpless. The Fu sisters watched the entire battle from the side, and they both revealed astonished expressions. They thought to themselves, "Isn't the martial arts of the Central Plains a little too miraculous?" At this moment, Huashan was also regretting. At first, he thought that Duan Yu did not know martial arts. He did not care about Yelu Qi's martial art. Although Xiao Feng's martial arts were high, they had so many people on their side. It would not be difficult to defeat him. Who knew that Duan Yu had such magical martial arts? Thinking that many people would come after hearing the news, he became more and more anxious. As time went by, he was forced into a dangerous situation by Xiao Feng several times. At this moment, an angry roar came from the side. "Xiao Feng." The voice was full of hatred. It was as if there was a deep hatred between the two. Xiao Feng felt an extremely cold inner force coming from his side. He quickly hit back with his palm. At the same time, he was worried that Huashan would take the opportunity to attack him. So he took the opportunity to draw the palm force over, and at the same time, he stepped back. He saw that the person was wearing a bamboo hat. It was covered with a layer of black gauze, so he could not see his face. "Who are you?" "I am the leader of the beggar sect, Zhuang Juxian." The person's tone was a little hesitant. He seemed to be afraid of Xiao Feng. "Leader of the beggar sect?" Xiao Feng frowned. "Do the people of the beggar sect hate me that much?" Zhuang Juxian swallowed his saliva. "No. Yes. Anyway, you and I have an irreconcilable hatred." He was not good with words, so he did not say anything else and attacked. Although Xiao Feng was confused, he did not dare to be careless when he saw the man's menacing attack. His palm force was extremely cold. Huashan hesitated for a moment. He did not attack. Instead, he went to Duan Yu and stopped him. He ordered the rest of his men, "Take the people and leave first." The men in black nodded and carried the Fu sisters and the crown prince of Goryeo away. Duan Yu and the rest wanted to stop them, but they could not. They could only watch as the men in black split into two groups and disappeared at the end of the street. "Sister, what will happen to us next?" Fu Junyu's voice was trembling. She was in despair when she saw that Xiao Feng and the rest could not save them. "No matter what happens, we must stay strong." Fu Junyi did not know how to comfort her sister. "Also, we might meet someone who will come to save us again. How can there be such a coincidence?" Fu Junyu knew that she was comforting her, but she did not know why a figure appeared in her mind. However, she quickly eliminated it. How could it be? He does not know martial arts. Even if he came, he would not be able to save us. Chapter 2189. Get out of the way, they kill without batting an eye. After the initial surprise, the Fu sisters quickly returned to their senses. Previously, they had witnessed these men in black killing in the Gaoli guesthouse. Now that there was no one around, they would not hesitate to kill a mere young master of the southern Song dynasty. The person who came was naturally Song Qingshu. When he heard the sisters' words, he thought that although they looked very fierce on the surface, they were actually very kind on the inside. It was a pity that the two of them had been seriously injured in the Dongying guesthouse. Otherwise, with their martial arts, they wouldn't have been able to massacre the Galley guesthouse and capture him alive. Of course, he would not retreat. Looking at the group of men in black, he said lightly, "Let them go." This group of men in black seemed to have fewer people than when he saw them from a distance. There was no sign of the Crown Prince of Goryeo. They must have split up. Some of them took the Fu sisters in this direction, while the others took the Crown Prince of Goryeo in another direction. "I know you. You are the good-for-nothing who used money to buy your opponents to advance. How much money are you going to use to buy us?" Someone recognized him and pointed at him with a smile. His companions echoed, "We are not like the leader of the Yellow River Gang who has never seen money before. You will have to pay a lot this time. If you have enough money, we can consider letting you live." Seeing these people's complacent expressions, Song Qinshu snorted. Central Plains read, "Come out and work." When he went to Wang Baobao's place, he deliberately got rid of him. Later, when he went to the Korea Hotel to check, he found that the fire here was shocking. Central Plains Red was also rushing here and happened to pass by. Song Qinshu sensed his aura and decided to call him. Little Red of the Central Plains was also very depressed at this time. He was the most powerful killer in Jiangnan, but this time he was sent to protect a young master. Although he was not very good at it, it was not difficult to protect a playboy. But this guy always disappeared. Killers were good at stealth and tracking, and as the top killer, he was the best in this field. But no matter how hard he tried, he still could not find the person he was protecting. Usually, he would be able to find it after a period of time. However, Little Red of the Central Plains was in a trance. He had a feeling that the other party had purposely appeared for him to find. It was the same thing this time around. As soon as Zhang Xian left the Southern Song residence, he lost sight of the other party in the blink of an eye. It was not easy for him to meet the other party again, but the other party actually asked him to make a move. "Are you so sure that I'm by your side?" Little Red of the Central Plains was furious. She had the urge to let go and see what kind of expression the person she was protecting would have. However, he could only think about it. He had never failed a mission before. Although the mission this time was not to kill, he did not want to ruin his reputation. When the group of black-clothed men heard Song Qingshu's words, they couldn't help but be stunned. They thought to themselves, "What's a red dot in the Central Plains? Is it a person's name? How can there be such a long name?" While they were still in a daze, a red light flashed, and a red line of blood appeared on the forehead of the group of black-robed men. Sword Qi had entered their brains, and it looked like they would die. Song Qingshu hurried over and helped the Fu sisters up. "Are you all right? If you had come a little later, you wouldn't have seen me." Fu Junyu was, after all, young. She had experienced too many things today, and had been frightened all the time. Now that she finally relaxed, the panic and fear in her heart burst out in an instant. She buried her head in Zhang Xian's arms and cried, "It's okay, it's okay." Song Qingshu gently patted her shoulder to comfort her. He subconsciously wanted to hug Fu Junyi to comfort her, but she rolled her eyes at him and pushed him back. This person's sword is so fast and so ruthless. Fu Junyi was older, after all, and didn't lose control of her emotions like her younger sister. At this time, all her attention was on Little Red of the Central Plains. The tip of his sword was dripping with blood, and at the same time, there were several shocking wounds on his body that were also bleeding. Tsinghua University Little Red of the Central Plains sword was very fast, but these black-clothed men were also first-class experts. Although it happened suddenly, the counterattack before death still caused him to suffer serious injuries. Song Qingshu also turned around and threw a porcelain bottle to him. "This is the best medicine for wounds. Treat your wounds yourself." Little Red of the Central Plains was a little disdainful at first, but when he opened the porcelain bottle and took a sniff, his expression couldn't help but change. Tian Chi Shark's Gallbladder Powder. Why do you have the elixir of Peach Blossom Island? Song Qingshu didn't answer his question. Instead, he said something else. Do you always exchange your life for a life like this? Little Red of the Central Plains answered coldly, not exchange my life for a life, but exchange my injury for a life. Song Qingshu nodded secretly. Little Red of the Central Plains' sword was very fast, but no matter how fast it was, there was a limit. Looking at the whole Jianghu, he was considered a master, but he was still far from the grandmaster level. Strictly speaking, his martial arts skills were even a little worse than some first-class masters. However, his sword was a sword that killed people, and what he was best at was killing people. Unless a master above the grandmaster level used their skills to crush him, other people would eventually die in his hands, even if their martial arts skills were higher than his. If you exchange your injury for a life like this, it will be fine when you are young, but when you get older, you will be plagued with injuries, and your life will be shorter than ordinary people's. Song Qingshu thought about his talent in using the sword, and when he could give him some advice on some truly superior swordsmanship. Killers can't even live until tomorrow, so they only think about the present, not the future. Little Red of the Central Plains left these words coolly, and his figure quickly disappeared into the night. Fu Junyu wiped her tears and looked in the direction where he disappeared. She couldn't help but sigh. Your friend is very handsome. Song Qingshu looked gloomy. Am I not handsome because I saved you? Fu Junyu rolled her eyes. He was the one who saved us. Song Qingshu spat. Without my order, he wouldn't even blink when you were gang-raped. Jia. Fu Junyu immediately got angry. Even Fu Junyi, who was beside her, looked at him angrily. Song Qingshu smiled embarrassedly. I was just making an example. Stop fooling around, you two. Let's go and save the crown prince. Fu Junyi took back her sword from the man in black. Song Qingshu frowned. You are seriously injured. How are you going to save him? My friend is also seriously injured. He only has one life, and I don't want him to lose his life. Little Red of the Central Plains, who was hiding in the dark and applying medicine, felt a trace of warmth in her cold heart. She thought that this guy still had a conscience. He didn't forget his friends because of love. Fu Junyi cupped his hands and said, He is the crown prince of Goryeo. We have to save him, even if it means sacrificing our lives. We will bid farewell here. I will repay young master's kindness in my next life. After saying that, she pulled Fu Junyu and was about to leave. Song Qingshu stretched out his hand and stopped them. Sensing that her breasts were not far from his hand, Fu Junyi's face turned slightly red. She hurriedly took a step back. What do you mean, young master? Chapter 2190. Fu Junyi was stunned. She was just being polite. She didn't expect him to get to the bottom of it. After thinking for a while, she replied, I'll be your slave in the next life to repay you, okay? It was hard to find fault with her answer. She didn't want to use words like, not grass, because she was worried that he would misunderstand something. Slave. Song Qingshu was stunned. I don't farm. Why would I need a slave? Hey, you can ride a slave and a horse. Are you referring to? Get lost. Fu Junyi was furious. If he hadn't saved her several times, she would have pierced a hole in him with her sword if he was another playboy who dared to tease her like this. Fu Junyi couldn't help but pull his ear. You're getting bolder. How dare you tease my sister? Song Qingshu looked innocent. I thought you were hinting at something. Even Fu Junyi couldn't help but blush. Okay, we're going to save the crown prince. This has nothing to do with you. You don't have to follow us to avoid danger. You two are seriously injured now. Aren't you going to die? Song Qingshu frowned as he looked at the two women's pale and weak faces. But he's our crown prince. He must be saved. Fu Junyi took her sister's hand. Okay, you can go back. If you really want to help us inform the Xixia. Song Qingshu sighed. Your crown prince indeed has nothing to do with me, but the two of you are greatly related to me. You still owe me a favor. If you die, won't I suffer a great loss? No, I have to go with you. Although he said such words, the Fu sisters felt warm in their hearts. Even Fu Junyi, who had always been prejudiced against him, felt that he was still a good person. Song Qingshu waved his hand and said to the Central Plains Red Dead in the darkness, "You don't have to follow us. Find a place to treat your wounds." A cold voice came from the darkness, "What if I don't follow you and die? You won't be able to fight with your current injuries." Song Qingshu recalled the situation of the battle just now. In fact, these men in black were very skilled in martial arts. Among them, there were even some who were not inferior to one red from the Central Plains. It was only because he attacked suddenly and used the method of exchanging injuries for lives that he was able to defeat the other party in a short period of time. However, he was also seriously injured. "Don't worry, I have money. I will smash them to death when the time comes." Looking at the thick stack of banknotes in his hand, Red Dot of the Central Plains, the Fu sisters, in the end, Little Red of the Central Plains left. As a killer, he could calmly judge the strength of the enemy and himself. Now, even if he followed her, he would not be able to protect her. It was better to hurry back and inform the people of the southern Song and the western Xia country to help. Only Song Qingshu and the Fu sisters were left. He smiled and leaned over. "I see that you are seriously injured and can't walk fast. By the time we get there, I'm afraid that your crown prince will be dead. Do you want me to help you?" Fu Junyi rolled her eyes at him and ignored him. Fu Junyi looked at him with a faint smile. "Why didn't I think that you were so bad before? Why did you come up with such a way to take advantage of us?" Song Qingshu laughed awkwardly. "I'm really worried about your health. It's okay. We can still handle these injuries." As soon as Fu Junyi said this, she felt dizzy and her whole body swayed. If it weren't for her sister supporting her, she would have fallen to the ground. Fu Junyi hurriedly called out to Song Qingshu, "Help me support my sister. Her injuries are more serious." No need." Fu Junyi hurriedly waved her hand and refused. Fu Junyi pressed her hand. "Sister, don't force yourself. Try to save as much strength as possible. Later, you will have the strength to save people." Hearing this, Fu Junyi did not say anything. Song Qingshu walked over and squatted down. "It's too slow to support her. I'll carry her." Fu Junyi hesitated, but in the end she nodded and gently leaned on him. When Song Qingshu stood up, he reached out to support her buttocks and lifted them up. At that moment, he could clearly feel that the beauty's body was a little stiff. "If you take advantage of me, I will kill you," Fu Junyi whispered in his ear. Song Qingshu smiled. "If I don't support you, you will fall." "What are you talking about?" Fu Junyi looked over curiously. Fu Junyi's face heated up. "No, nothing." Seeing that his hand did not move, she breathed a sigh of relief. Along the way, Fu Junyi straightened her back and put her elbows on his back. She did not want her body to have too much contact with him. This made Song Qingshu laugh. "Aren't you tired?" "Don't worry," Fu Junyi replied with a straight face. "But you move your center of gravity backward. It's even more tiring for me to carry you." Song Qingshu looked speechless. Fu Junyi could not help but tease. "My sister is so slim, yet you are tired carrying her. I heard that the young masters of the Southern Song dynasty like to linger in brothels. Have you been hollowed out?" Song Qingshu said gloomily, "You are a little girl. How can you talk about these things without shame?" Fu Junyi snorted. "Our Korea does not have as many messy rules as your Southern Song dynasty." Along the way, listening to the two bickering, Fu Junyi's nervous heart gradually relaxed. Soon, she realized that her arms were numb and her waist was uncomfortable. In the end, she unknowingly lowered her body and lightly leaned on his back. "Miss Fu, do you drink milk every day in Korea?" Song Qingshu suddenly asked. Fu Junyi was stunned. No, why? That's strange. How can you grow so well just by eating kimchi? Feeling the softness on his back, Song Qinshu fell into doubt. What are you talking about? Fu Junyi felt that he was up to no good. Right at that moment, the sounds of fighting came from not too far away. The old man from the mountain was fighting with Xiao Feng, Zhuang Juxian was fighting with Duan Yu, and Yelu Qi was struggling under the attacks of the other black-robed men. If it weren't for Xiao Feng and Duan Yu helping him out from time to time, he might have already died. As it turned out, Zhuang Juxian had held Xiao Feng back. After exchanging a few blows, Xiao Feng quickly realized that although Zhuang Juxian's yin energy was amazing, his martial arts were too weak. Therefore, he showed an opening and lured Zhuang Juxian to attack. Just as he was about to easily subdue Zhuang Juxian, the old man who had been paying attention to the battle immediately came to his rescue. Then, it became a situation where Xiao Feng was fighting against the old man, and Duan Yu was fighting against Zhuang Juxian. The latter two's martial arts were amazing, but they also did not have much fighting experience, so they were evenly matched. Where did you take our crown prince? Fu Junyi pulled out her sword and shouted. Fu Junyi also got down from Song Qinshu. The old man turned around and saw that the two of them had escaped. He was shocked. Xiao Feng said, "The white-haired man and the beautiful woman left in that direction with your crown prince. White hair and beautiful face." Based on his description, Song Qinshu immediately realized the identity of the two people. Chapter 2191. He saw Yelu Nanxian leading a group of Western Xia cavalrymen rushing towards them. She was tall and slender, and had an outstanding temperament. Now that she was riding on a horse, her long legs paired with the maroon-red horse, she looked so valiant and heroic that it was breathtaking. When the old man in the mountain saw that the Western Xia army had rushed over, and there was no lack of Class 1 Hall elites among them, he shouted, "Retreat!" His body moved strangely, and with a few twists and turns, he broke away from Xiao Feng. Soon, he disappeared into the darkness. The other men in black hurriedly retreated. Yelu Nanxian coldly snorted and waved her hand. The cavalrymen in black were good at martial arts, but how could they compare to the old man's speed? In an instant they were shot by the rain of arrows. Some were nailed to the ground, some were nailed to the trees. It was a pitiful sight. The Fu sisters felt relieved when they saw the people who killed the Goryeo envoys. Fu Junyi couldn't help but praise, "This Western Xia crown princess is beautiful, and so handsome when commanding the army. It would be great if I could be like her." Fu Junyi couldn't help but say, "I'm afraid you won't have the chance to command the army. But this crown princess is really impressive." Song Qinshu smiled, but he fell into deep thought. The old man in the mountain was known as the king of assassins. It was impossible that he did not understand the principle of fleeing 1,000 miles if he failed to hit his target. Why was he entangled with Xiao Feng and the others here for so long? Why was he surrounded by the Western Xia cavalry? No matter how he looked at it, he seemed to be deliberately sending himself to death. Could it be, "Who are you?" Yelu Nanxian looked at the bamboo hat on Zhuang Juxian's head, and asked in a low voice. One of his subordinates ran over and answered, "This is our beggar clan's leader, Zhuang Juxian." Beggar clan's leader? Yelu Nanxian vaguely remembered that there was a beggar clan's leader participating in the marriage contest. His actions in the group competition were too cruel and caused a lot of criticism. She didn't expect it to be this person. He was a little fat, and through the black veil on his head, she could see the scars on his face. If Sister Qinglu knew that he was also here to marry her, she would probably be disgusted. Under the common hatred of a common enemy, Yelu Nanxian subconsciously felt a little unhappy. Yelu Nanxian raised the horsewhip in her hand and pointed it at him. "If you're the beggar clan leader, why did you help those men in black slaughter the Goryeo ambassadors?" Zhuang Juxian replied in a low, muffled voice, I don't know what Korea's diplomatic mission is, and I don't know those black-clothed people either. It's just that I have a grudge against Xiao Feng, so I fought with him." Xiao Feng, who was at the side, asked doubtfully, "Who exactly are you? What enmity do you have with this Xiao?" Zhuang Jiuxian snorted coldly. "Your hands have been stained with too much blood in this life. It's normal that you don't remember me." Xiao Feng immediately fell silent. He recalled that he had indeed killed many people in his life. Others aside, he had killed many righteous people in the Jianghu in a fit of rage at the Virtuous Gathering Manor. Wait, Zhuang Jiuxian, Virtuous Gathering Manor, could the two be related? When he raised his head and wanted to ask again, he found that Zhuang Jiuxian had already left. "Xiao Wangye, are you all right?" Yelu Nanxian got off her horse and walked over to ask. She had just seen him fighting with those black-clothed people from afar. Back when she was at the Liao Empire, she had even served under them. Naturally, she had to show some concern. "I'm fine. It's just that those black-clothed people are very skilled, and they don't seem to be from the Central Plains. I'm guessing that they might be from the Persian Ming dynasty." Xiao Feng recalled the scene of his fight with the black-clothed people. Every move the black-clothed people made could be said to be fatal. Ever since his martial arts had reached a high level, he had never met such a dangerous opponent in a one-on-one fight. The Persian Ming dynasty, wasn't it destroyed by the Mongols? Yelu Nanxian sank into deep thought. Searching for an e-book at this time, a cold female voice came from the side. "Crown Princess, please help us." Yelu Nanxian turned around and found that the two beautiful Fu sisters were kneeling on one knee in front of her. However, what she was more concerned about was Song Qingshu, who was behind the two girls. Noticing her gaze, Song Qingshu's face heated up. He thought to himself, "I was obviously going to investigate the Ruyang household. I was doing proper business. Why do I feel a sense of guilt now?" "Ladies, please get up." Yelu Nanxian hurriedly helped the Fu sisters up. Noticing the injuries on their bodies, she even sent for 2 stools for them to sit on. The Fu sisters felt warmth in their hearts. After expressing their gratitude, they said, "Our crown prince was captured by those people, and we don't know if he's dead or alive. Please, crown princess, save him." Yelu Nanxian rolled her eyes at Song Qingshu, thinking to herself, "You two didn't even bother to seek help from this great Buddha, and instead came to me." She asked, "Do you know who that person is?" The Fu sisters hesitated. The black-clothed people had covered their faces the entire time and didn't reveal their identities. They really didn't know who they were. At first, they suspected that they were Dong Ing people because they had the most motive. However, after exchanging blows, they realized that they didn't seem to be Dong Ing people. "They're Su Liawu's men." A man's voice rang out. Everyone turned around and saw Wang Baobao walking over, surrounded by a group of experts. "Su Liawu?" Yelu Nanxian was startled. Although she knew about the conflict between the Mongolian factions, she didn't expect Wang Baobao to publicly undermine them. The leader should be the great elder of the Persian Ming dynasty, Huashan, the king of assassins. Wang Baobao said in a low voice, "King Xiao just fought with him, so you should know him best." Xiao Feng nodded. The other party had indeed used the heaven and earth great shift. Yelu Nanxian thought for a moment. "All right, let's go to Su Liawu and ask for him." All this time, they had indeed adhered to the principle of not offending the envoys of other countries. However, this time, Su Liawu had gone too far. He had publicly killed a country's envoy in the capital of Western Xia. Now, all the other countries were waiting to see Western Xia's reaction. If Western Xia retreated now, the other countries might follow suit. That would be even more troublesome to manage. They couldn't let the other countries think that Western Xia was weak and could be bullied. Wang Baobao was a little surprised. "Crown Princess, you are indeed a heroine. I thought that Western Xia was a small border country and didn't dare to offend Mongolia." "You don't have to worry about that." Yelu Nansien waved her hand, commanding the cavalry and the experts of First Hall to hurry to Su Liawu's residence. Leaping onto her horse, Yelu Nansien asked the Fu sisters, "Can the two ladies still ride horses?" With these two victims of Goryeo present, even if they surrounded Su Liawu's residence, it would still be reasonable. Even if Temujin found out, he wouldn't be able to say anything. The Fu sisters nodded. Yes. Fu Junyu turned to look at Song Qinshu, her expression a little more delicate than before. "Are you coming with us?" Song Qinshu was about to reply when Yelu Nansien coughed lightly. "Young Master Jia, you should come with us. After all, you saved the two ladies and can be considered a witness. However, we don't have enough horses right now. Young Master, why don't you ride with me?" Chapter 2192. Everyone knew that the crown princess of the Xixia country had just married into the Xixia country, but the crown prince had died before the marriage was consummated. She became a widow at such a young age. The customs of the Xixia country were open-minded. Unlike the strict etiquette in the southern Song dynasty, the crown princess did not think that the crown princess would stay a widow for the rest of her life for her husband whom she had never met. However, it was beyond everyone's expectation that she would hook up with another man so quickly. They heard that Jia Baoyu was a famous playboy in linen. Relying on his good looks, he mingled with women all day long and was good at pleasing them. No one expected that even the crown princess of Xixia would fall for him. There must be a male fox spirit. Wang Baobao frowned. It was a pity that the crown princess of Xixia liked a pretty boy from the southern Song dynasty. Xiao Feng thought, Nansien and brother Song have a relationship. Why is she so close to Jia Baoyu? He was a careful man. Although he had doubts, he didn't ask. Duan Yu was lost in thought as he gazed at Yelu Nanshian's face under the moonlight, thinking to himself that this crown princess's beauty was not inferior to Miss Wang's. Sigh, he had thought that young Master Morong would come to the Western Xia's groom selection, then he would be able to see Miss Wang again. Sai Zhuang Juxian was also in a difficult situation. He thought of the girl in purple that he missed day and night. His expression changed from gentle to fierce. No one knew what he was thinking. Feeling the strange eyes of the people around him, Song Qinshu thought that he shouldn't offend women. Yelu Nansien was probably playing a trick on him, but he had been through a lot and his face was thicker than the city wall. He wouldn't be stumped by such a small thing. "How can I do that?" Although he said so, he didn't show any dissatisfaction. He went directly to Yelu Nanshian's horse, grabbed her thigh and tried to climb up. Shameless! This sentence came to everyone's mind. Thinking of his promotion during the day, they felt that this sentence was the most suitable for him. Yelu Nansien originally wanted to see him make a fool of himself, who would have thought that he would really take advantage of the situation. She couldn't help but panic. Although she was close to him, that was in private. Now that everyone was watching and she was the crown princess, she had to consider the consequences. "Hey, what are you doing? Get off quickly, I'm just joking with you. Miss Fu's injuries aren't light, I'm afraid it's not convenient for her to ride a horse. You ride with her and take care of her." Yelu Nanshian's face was red as she waved her whip at him, chasing him off. Song Qinshu had only intended to tease her, and did not intend to expose their relationship so quickly. Seeing this, he took the opportunity to walk to Fu Junyi's side with a look of regret. What kind of luck is this? Even without the crown princess, there is still a beautiful female swordsman. Not to mention ordinary people, even Wang Baobao, who was used to seeing beautiful women in a high position, could not remain calm. Fu Junyi had been happily watching the show, who would have thought that in the blink of an eye, the fire would burn her. She hurriedly refused with a red face, "No, no need, my sister and I can ride on the same horse." Yelu Nansien directly interrupted, "Second, Miss Fu is also injured, and she is still young, she may not be able to support you." Also, I saw this young Master Jia carrying you all the way here. Could it be that Miss Fu is unwilling now? Fu Junyi did not expect that she would also see the scene just now. For a moment, she was embarrassed and didn't know what to say. Song Qinshu suddenly understood. No wonder she was so jealous. She saw me being beaten by Fu Junyi. All right, if you delay any longer, the crown prince will not be able to be saved. You guys follow me. Yelu Nanxian turned her horse around and led the Western Xia warriors to gallop away. Fu Junyi had no choice but to ride with Song Qinshu. She was seriously injured and weak. She could only barely maintain her balance by leaning on his chest. Thank you for your hard work, young master. Fu Junyi was hugging her from behind, feeling the man's strong masculine aura. For a moment, Fu Junyi was in a trance. Before coming to the Central Plains, she never thought that one day she would be hugged by a man like this. Besides, it was rumored that Jia Baoyu smelled like rouge, but where was the slightest hint of rouge on him? Not at all. Perhaps it was because of the injury. The body of the beauty in his arms was extremely soft, and the girl's body exuded a fresh and natural fragrance. Presumably, no man would refuse this kind of hard work. First catch for a moment, Song Qinshu was a little confused. Nanxian was obviously jealous, so why did she take the initiative to matchmake us? Was his luck so good that all his confidants were like Shuang who took the initiative to find girls for men? Speaking of which, he had not heard from Shuang for a long time. She had returned to her hometown in Jiaxing to observe mourning. If he had the chance to pass by Jiaxing, he must go and see her. Thinking back to how gentle and considerate Shuang was, Song Qinshu couldn't help but smile. Hey, you're smiling so lewdly. Don't tell me you have some strange ideas about my sister? At this time, Fu Junyu's voice startled him. He saw that the little girl was looking at him suspiciously. Song Qinshu's face reddened. What nonsense are you talking about? Ride the horse properly, don't fall off. Fu Junyu did not let it go. Older sister, has there been any change in this guy's body? Not expecting that she would ask this, Song Qinshu's heart tightened. Body change? Fu Junyu's white jade-like cheeks had a faint blush. No, you little girl. What kind of nonsense is going on in your mind all day long? Oh, that's good. Being scolded by her older sister, Fu Junyu became slightly happy. When there was some distance between the two horses, Song Qinshu said in a small voice next to the beautiful woman's ear, "Thank you for hiding it from me." Fu Junyu lightly bit her lip. She thought, with her younger sister's explosive personality, how could she let this kind of thing go? No need to thank me, this is not your fault. She felt that the conversation was strange. She straightened to avoid being too close to him and changed the topic. It feels like you are very familiar with the crown princess. Not very familiar, we've just had deep conversations a few times. Song Qinshu replied. Deep conversations? Fu Junyu's brows furrowed. Clearly, she did not understand the hidden meaning in his word. I really have to thank you this time. The crown princess probably helped us because of you. Song Qinshu laughed. Then how does Miss plan to thank me? Yelu Nanxian's actions were clearly not because of him, but it would be a waste not to take credit for this. Fu Junyu's face hardened. If you continue to say such frivolous words, I'm really going to get angry. Seeing that her expression didn't seem to be fake, Song Qinshu didn't dare to continue teasing her. He thought to himself that if it wasn't a coincidence, this icy beauty would have long since pierced a hole in her with her sword when facing other lechers. We've arrived. Fu Junyu was also a little flustered, but her mind was quickly occupied by saving the crown prince. At the entrance of the Mongolian embassy, Fang Yeyu and a group of Mongolian warriors were nervously facing the Western Xia cavalry. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.